Hi, Carol. Hello,
Uh,
Carol.
hey, what's up? Assalamu alaikum.
Hello.
It's Claire. Claire. So people are gathering around Stephen, huh? Saying he's the Messiah substitute.
No, no. Well, he's currently streaming with Luke Ford, and he's got significantly more viewers than Luke. I've been doing a tally for him, so it's 1333 in favor of Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at its highest, it was 9 for Luke, 35 for Stephen. And Luke's been doing it far longer than.
Wait a
uh,
minute. Luke is trying to be the Messiah substitute.
no, I don't think you quite got the idea of the Messiah substitute.
No,
Did
I
you?
did. I do. I just thought it was kind of funny the whole thread. But you're saying Stephen has more followers than Luke.
He has more live viewers on his channel than Luke
Oh,
Ford.
well, pretty close to Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it could be the time difference, or that Stephen just has more youthful followers, and as people get older, they get fewer and less committed. Maybe, I mean, we don't really know, but I think Stephen is more entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that and is trusted. I don't think Luke is trusted.
Oh, well.
Because Stephen has this air of sincerity and clubability, and people tend to trust him.
He does come off kind of nice in a stream for some reason.
Yes, yes. Well, people perceive him as a nice boy and perceive Luke to be a bit of a psychopath. So that doesn't help Luke.
Huh. Okay. So, so so
Well,
we're talking about a
the,
Messiah substitute now.
and I feel I should explain what it is for people who are
Okay.
not yet familiar. So people who believe, well, Jews, Christians, and Muslims want the Messiah to come because they're sick and tired of their corrupt and incompetent ruling classes messing up their country and the world in general. And they don't know what to do, and so they want the Messiah to come. And I'm saying he's not the maid of all work. A lot of these problems can be solved easily if you really believed in the logic of your beliefs and are prepared to be guided by reason and truth. But it seems they're not. And that's why nothing will happen. So, with regard to the Jews, they refuse to rank the four Gentile religions. And I'm saying, look, Jews, what do you think you were made God's chosen people to do? You were surely meant to convert to Islam after you realize that the Torah is far too hard for you. And they don't want to hear any of that, and they don't want to do any of that. And the next thing I say is, well, you're obviously atheists. It's not just the Christians who are hypocrites and liars pretending to believe in God. You clearly don't. And because there are plenty of capital punishments awaiting you, because the Torah doesn't mention a heaven or a hell, but it has all these capital punishments, 36 of them, and we are to assume, as rabbis over the ages have assumed, that if you don't get punished for these crimes in your lifetime, it will be waiting for you in the afterlife. And this they seem to have forgotten about. Christians, obviously, according to the Christian theology, mortal sins include idolatry and blasphemy. And we know that it was a Christian practice to burn heretics at the stake. And just because they don't do it now, they've forgotten their entire history. And we know that the only way um, Christian monarchs in Europe kept Christianity afloat was through the practice of heretic burning, because we know that the moment they stopped burning heretics at the stake, and 1612 was the last time they burnt a heretic at the stake, but the execution of heretics continued until 1697, when the last man in Britain to be hanged, executed for blasphemy, was in 1697. He was only a 20-year-old law student in Edinburgh. And he tried to say he didn't mean it, but they hanged him anyway. But anyway, before 80 years was up, there was the American Revolution. And so I think Americans can take the credit for being the first step towards moving away from monarchy and Christianity. But whether they understand that is what has been happening in the last 250 years is another thing. Because I'm saying the age of monarchy was displaced by the age of revolution, starting with the American, French, and Russian revolutions. And the Americans were, quite kind, really, but possibly they might have committed regicide if the king was actually in the New World. But since he wasn't, he was spared. But in France in 1786, wasn't it? They beheaded the king and queen of France, and we know that in 1918 the Russians were so fed up with their absolute monarchy that they exterminated the entire royal family. So the Romanovs were executed in the summer of 1918.
Alrighty, daddy do. So,
Oh yes, and today I've discovered that the real sectarianism between Sunnis and Shias was at the time after the rightly guided caliphs, it was the Sunnis who were being very Republican, saying, well, it should be. It doesn't matter if the next caliph Ali is not a member of. Is that right? Maybe I'm getting it a bit confused. It doesn't matter if he's not the next caliph. And the Shias were saying, no, 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 he's got to be a member of Muhammad's family. And the Sunni said, no, no, it doesn't matter. And so at the time, the Shias were more monarchists and the Sunnis were more Republicans. But right now, it's gone the other way around, because it's the Sunnis who live under monarchy and the Shias in Iran who are the Republicans. But they're only 20% of the Ummah. So that's interesting. It reminds me, I'm nearly finished now, of the difference between the Democrats, who used to be the party of the KKK, and then and then they have now become the party of BLM.
well, it was actually three groups in the, after the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him. There were those that said, Imam Ali should be the leader. Then the ones that were saying it needed to be from the Quraysh. And then there was a group that said the community itself had to choose. They needed to be able to choose. So there's actually three views. And the one that was that thought the community itself to choose is what they call Havarij.
So they've had a very bad press, the Khawarij,
Well,
the Kharijites.
Yeah, because they pretty much were against. They didn't like Imam Ali either. They got. Anyway, there's some history to it, but it was a big argument after the Prophet's, death, peace be upon him, when at his death, over what kind of government it's going to take, and everybody tries to kind of make it look like it's more minimal than it was. It was actually a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Yeah,
So,
because I mean, we know from the Jews and the Christians that they haven't been particularly well served by their monarchs either, and we know from the Book of Samuel that God was, I think, displeased when the
oh,
Jews
you're
asked
off.
him for a king. You're aware of that,
Larry
aren't
got
you?
this.
Hello.
Yeah.
Uh, um, right. So you know that according to the Book of Samuel, God wasn't happy when the Jews asked him for a king. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Well, okay.
And so, I mean, we also know that the book of Judges preceded the book of Kings, and the Jews in the ancient kingdom of Israel had very bad kings, and apparently King Solomon died an idolater, and after and he was supposed to be the best king of all.
Well, I don't think it much matters what's. I don't think it much matters these Bible stories right now. I think
Well,
what
well, it doesn't matter because a lot of of the Gulf kingdoms are monarchies, and and the the um the integrity of Islamic scholars who live in Gulf kingdoms, who are absolute monarchies, um, is in question because they're obviously afraid of having some absolute monarch sign their death warrant or throw them into the dungeon. So you can't trust the integrity of Islamic scholars who live in the Gulf kingdoms. Well, it could be said that the supreme leader of the Iranian Republic would have, um, well, I mean, he does consult with a council of elders, doesn't he, about, whether the law of Iran is in harmony with Islamic principles.
yeah, Council of Guardians. Uh-huh.
Council of Guardians. So I know a lot of these Sunnis say, oh no, 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 they're idolaters and worship their imams and rubbish like that. It's like, well, um, whatever you think of them, the Republic of Iran is the most powerful Islamic state. That is a republic in the whole wide world, and isn't it logical if you are to have a caliphate to to just choose that one? I mean, of course, a lot of people, oh, they're not good enough and they're corrupt and whatever. But if everybody if everybody were happy with each other and their interpretation of the Quran, it would have to be, well, the most powerful Islamic state. But that's not the end of the story, because I'm saying, well, if America adopted secular Quranism with American characteristics, then America would be the caliphate. And Trump, I guess, would be the caliph. Ditto for China if they decided to adopt secular Quranism with, Chinese characteristics. It would be President Xi who would be, the caliph, I guess. I mean, if you're going by that rule of thumb, I mean, I know, they don't even want to think about it, but I'm saying, if the Ummah were agreeable, but I don't think it's just, I'm sure the Ummah would be, would love to give everyone, their opinion on it, but I'm sure all the Gulf kingdoms or any Muslim kingdom would be, very anxious to suppress that kind of idea, because they don't want to, they don't want to to abolish their monarchy and establish a republic, because there's so many vested interests. But if America were to do it, then it would have a better run global empire, and everyone would praise Americans for becoming, being the Ninevites of the 21st century, and it would be fun for Americans to watch their corrupt and incompetent ruling classes groveling in the ground in sackcloth and ashes, being filmed by CNN and NBC and MSNBC and ABC and all the others. as a sign of repentance and for not, following Washington's instructions and advice, not to form political parties. And then you will have a new world order. And I think, yeah, and all the sins of America would be forgiven. It's like, oh, yeah, they did wrong, they did bad things, but, they saw in time what they had to do to correct
Well,
themselves.
it seems that the United States needs a government that cares about its own citizens. Is the main problem.
Yeah, yeah, and so I wanted Vince and Bruno to acknowledge me as a Messiah substitute. It's like, well, you're not Christian, and you don't believe that the Messiah is coming anyway. But so you're not, putting your reputation on the line by acknowledging me as a Messiah substitute, because by acknowledging me as a Messiah substitute, he's basically saying, I don't believe the Messiah is coming in either Claire's or my lifetime. And that well, that's kind of not very controversial. And then people can start talking about it, because I think all that is required is that people acknowledge, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, acknowledge that they've somehow taken the wrong path and misinterpreted their religion. When you think of the Sunni Shia difference, I mean, it's not, it's like, the real difference is that it isn't politically convenient for Sunnis who live under monarchies to acknowledge a Republican supreme leader, and also they're afraid of what their absolute monarch might do to them.
Yeah, but
But
what's
these
that
are,
got to do with the United States, really, Claire? I mean, what's that got to do with that? The Muslims over in the Middle East, are
well, you
this?
control them.
Hmm?
You control them. America, the loads of U.S. naval and military bases. Turkey has the largest number of NATO
What does
soldiers.
that have to do? I mean, this is the United States messing around in foreign governments.
Yeah,
That has
so
nothing.
Trump wants to call them back, and you want that, don't you? That's
I,
what you
I
want.
don't know what's going on with Trump. I think it's all theater right now.
Okay, but you, as an American, don't want you don't want these foreign adventures. Washington warned you guys not to have these foreign adventures,
No, I
and
don't
then
want
you just disobeyed him, and that's why you're in this trouble.
No, I don't like it. I don't like this stuff going on. It's immoral. I
Yeah,
don't like it.
exactly. So basically, there are Quranic principles of international relations and warfare, which obviously America has broken, and so have the Europeans. And the thing is, Carol, it's the easiest thing to say. Bad stuff happened to you in your country. Well, it can easily be traced to you not following this or that Quranic principle. Don't you think? Well, okay, think of a historical tragedy.
I think what got me kind of interested on this when Stephen had that little post was that
About him being the
the
personal
guy
Jesus.
that said, you're such Jesus substitute or something.
Your
Is
personal
that
Jesus
is
for
that
Alvin in exile.
how's this got to do with white people, RT, and the fact that our government isn't serving the people? How
Can
does
you
it
remind us what RT is again?
replacement theory?
Okay.
So, to me, it seems that everyone wants to spend all their time blaming the Jews, which, okay, could be true, could be not, for the sake of the video. Let's just say could be either way, but that's not what getting anybody off the couch. It's not getting anyone to put the bong down and get off their couch. Okay, so to me it's a useless narrative from that
I think
standpoint.
we can blame the Jews because if God made Jews his chosen people to convert to Islam and they haven't converted to Islam, or even ranked the four Gentile religions to give themselves an easier afterlife, then it seems that all this time they've been only pretending to believe in God, just like the Christians. I know you sort of disagree, and you say some people really do believe, but yesterday you were in the space, and of these people who are supposed to be Christians, and you didn't think they were Christian at all.
Well, they weren't behaving like church people at all. No, they were behaving like
Just people who hate Islam and were used and would
no, they were behaving like misogynists. They were behaving like men that were getting, titillated by continuously talking about sex to women in there, using Prophet Muhammad's, wife to the, Aisha as the subject matter in order to keep talking about sexual matters with women. It was pretty gross. It's disgusting.
yes.
They could talk about, something else if they don't like Islam or whatever. I'm not saying that I'm not going one way or another with this, but I thought their behavior was kind of like when someone's just trying to get women to talk nasty to them in some way. You know
Yeah,
what I
I mean,
mean?
every time they
They
they,
were
they
low
thought it.
lifers. It was basically a space of low lifers.
Mhm.
That's what it was. So I mean, you can be a low lifer. Anyone can be a low lifer. It's pretty easy.
Yeah,
But my thing is about the problem is with white people. Okay, they don't like Islam. Okay, I don't blame them. They don't like the example of what they've been seeing that's been crashing into their country. And the media, of course, pits a lot of people against Muslims. And now in the United States, we don't have as big a problem as Europe does, really, to be honest. So I think a lot of this is media red herring to keep people squabbling while the real issue is going on, which is the one world government. Okay, so I think white Muslims have to cast off foreign Islamic authority because they do not respect or even like white people right now. I'm talking about the foreigners. They don't like them. You can hear this when they're speaking about them. You can hear this. In general, they have animosity towards white people. White people are the indigenous people of Europe. And in that case, they should not be allowed to be coming in like this. You can't
yeah,
bring
yeah,
them.
and white people are helpless to stop it, and there is
I don't know
doubt
if they're
even.
helpless. I don't know if they're helpless. I don't know if they're helpless or if they're just not, if they've been, uh, I don't know. It seems to me Europeans accept authority more than Americans do. Like the American problem is they don't stay unified enough, the white people. And then in Europe, it seems like they accept authority more. Like, I don't know. It's different. These places are different.
Well,
I mean,
but because we're just smaller countries, so it's easier to find us and fine us and you know stuff like that. I think that's it really, and of course we don't have First Amendment rights.
well, that's a big problem.
Yeah, and the thing is, I say to Europeans, you will get your First Amendment rights when you adopt secular Quranism with European characteristics. And to Americans, you will stand a better chance of getting better government if you adopt secular Quranism with American characteristics. But nobody wants to talk about it because they're all hypocrites. I've been complaining that after all this time, and I've been doing this for years and years and years, nobody will discuss a solution. And that's why I go on and on and on about millennial worlds, millennial, and they're not interested in discussions, in solutions. You listened to Jared Taylor last night, didn't you?
I didn't
On
listen to the whole thing.
millennial.
Yeah, I listened to
Did,
part of
did
it.
he discuss any solutions?
I didn't watch the whole thing. I had to go somewhere. I have all kinds of stuff going on right now. I had to go and I haven't finished watching it. Um,
Yeah. Oh, I didn't watch it
my
all the
my
way
my
through.
my whole thing is that what I'm seeing among white people is a decay in their culture in the United States. It is. but it's not all of them. It's just some. And because Americans did have this sort of more of an independent mindset when they came to America, back in the day, they tended to be more uh, doing things more independently, and they don't get together. They don't get together in the right way.
Yeah,
And
yeah, because they have no religion, they have no code of behavior about how to behave towards each other. Did you watch the video of the what was it called? The Am Fest or something? But anyway, it was Laura Loomer and Milo fighting and calling each other names.
oh, yeah, I don't know anything about them. Vincent has asked me, and I no, I saw it a little bit. Laura Loomer's a conservative activist, is she?
Yeah, she's a Jewess.
Uh huh. Yeah, I don't think these people. This isn't relevant. These kind of
Serious
people. They're
people.
not
Yeah, it's
relative
just
to.
personal politics for them.
Huh?
It's just personal politics for them. They're just getting on the bandwagon because they don't like immigrants, but they have no particular moral or religious code because they're
It's
all
not.
atheists.
This isn't. This isn't. These are all red herrings. This doesn't matter that she's yelling at this Milo guy in public. These are not the leaders of conservatism. The leaders of conservatism wouldn't be on social media doing something like that or in public.
Well,
Those
where are
people
they?
have their own parties, and we're
Where
not
are these
inviting them.
moral leaders?
Huh?
Where are these
They're
moral
the I
leaders?
don't. It's the oligarchy. It's these people up in the oligarchy, Blair. It's just how it is. They have their own
Sorry, it's
parties
these people what? I didn't hear.
of the oligarchy. They socialize together. They get together. They're the background behind who's going to be running politics. They're just the background. They're the certain elite people that we just don't hear or see too much about. Hear too much about.
Okay,
These
but
people
what?
making spectacles of themselves in public. That is not the leader of anything. This is media. This is just media players.
Yes, I know. So I'm saying, who are these people? And nobody's interested. It's very simple, Carol. The only way that ordinary Americans can hold their ruling classes accountable is to say, "Oh, hey, you're not supposed to undermine marriage. You're not supposed to make it gay. You're not supposed to encourage elementary school children to change their sex as an acceptable lifestyle choice. You're not supposed to do that." And I guess Congress would say, where does it say we're not supposed to do that? And unless you say we're Jews or Christians or you haven't got a leg to stand on. They control the legislature, they control the police and the army. And unless you say, no, well, if we haven't got a moral system, i.e., a list of rules that everybody, including the government, agrees to follow and obey, you guys will never be able to hold your ruling classes accountable. And I don't know if you understand this, or I
The
think I have
ruling
tried
class,
to.
the ruling class you're talking about.
Okay, I know they don't care, but can we just focus on, you know, you're going to have a ruling class, good or bad, right? That's a situation. You can't just say, I'm not going to have a government, I'm not going to have a ruling class, we're not going to have any schools or hospitals or taxes. You're going to have a government if you want Western civilization to carry on, right?
Claire, Claire,
No, no, you're going to say that
people
they don't,
have
you don't trust them or whatever. But can you just theorize that you still need a government? You want them to be better, but you need a government.
I'm not saying we don't need a government. I'm saying
Okay, but I know you're just going to say, oh, we can't trust the current
don't.
lot.
If you're going to start saying what I'm going to say, I'm just going to leave the chat. Okay, do not put words in my mouth again. Okay, you're acting like a misogynist man right there. I have a voice and I can talk for myself. Okay, I think white people need to band together and reclaim their civilization and better themselves. This is what I'm concerned about. And they need to marry and have kids. That's
And you
what
need a
white people,
government that supports marriage.
what we need is white people getting off the couch and throwing the bong down. Okay. So then you have Christians, the Christian evangelical white Christians or whatever. They're all harping on how much they can't stand the white Muslims, but they have a church that is not up to snuff anymore. It's not. It's not getting white people off the couch. I mean, this is what I'm
No,
looking
because the church is just telling liberals. The only purpose the church does is say to liberals, you get to heaven too. That's the only purpose it does now.
Claire, I'm more concerned about white people than this.
Yeah, I know, and I'm trying to tell you what the problem is, and you just wave it aside.
I didn't wave
I'm
it
trying
aside.
to tell you what the problem is.
I didn't wave it aside. I'm saying is what everybody has been talking about and trying to do hasn't been successful yet. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and you're saying, well, we have to be nice to Christians, and I'm saying, no, you have to tell them exactly where
No, I'm
things have gone
saying
wrong.
white people need to, they need to fix up their morals somewhat, and it would do some good for them to whip out that Quran and start looking at it, because it's pretty relatively simple.
So you need somebody at the top who agrees to do it. There's no point talking to the degenerates at the bottom.
They need to be ignored at this point. Okay? The masses have to ignore the so-called ruling class and tell them to buzz off.
Right, okay. Don't you understand that you need a leader who represents these people? You can't just be talking about, random people that you meet. You need somebody who actually has some authority, or nothing will happen. And that's why the hierarchy is so important. You need to say, okay, you guys, you white people or brown people or whatever, take me to your leader, and so I can talk to him. But if you can't even decide who your leader is, no, worse than that, you don't even think you need a leader. So you talk to some random white person, they agree with you. You talk to another, they disagree with you, and then another one, they agree and they disagree. It'll never end. You need somebody who's nominally the leader.
There's no one charismatic that I see that can stand up.
Okay, but we're just talking about the theory of it. I mean, nominally, it's Trump, isn't it?
Okay.
And then you're going to say, oh, he's never going to listen to us.
I'm not stuck on recreating a feudal society, and that's what's going on.
I'm not saying, why would I want to create a feudal society? Why do you think did I ever say
that? Claire, I'm not sure why you're trying to argue.
Well, I don't know. You're just saying no to everything I say. So it's like, fine. No. Just say what.
At something else. We've had this conversation 20 times that you're trying to.
Okay, so you're saying, let's not bother.
I'm saying.
Are we at the point of let's not bother?
I didn't say let's not bother.
Okay, what are you saying?
I'm saying is the Christians need to look at
them. They're useless, and you won't admit that they are useless. I've told you, the Pope is only there to tell liberals they go to heaven too. That's the only bloody purpose they have. Ditto the Archbishop of Canterbury. Yeah. So what was he saying? What this is how they are. They can't even talk properly. So what did she say? I think she's saying oligarchy. Yeah, so, yeah, I know. We live in an oligarchy. Thank you for that clarification, Annapurna. White as a classification seems horribly reductionist, just as brown, because they are myriad cultures and languages encompassed by that term. Yeah, I mean, just forget the race thing. It's like, okay, if we stick to the eternal and universal laws of God, such as the no-hide laws, then we should be better off than we are now, right? That's the purpose of the no-hide laws. But yeah, I get it that there are all these anti-Semites who are just rejecting the no-hide laws because they're Jewish, right? But actually, strictly speaking, they are for Gentiles. And why would any Gentile who doesn't hate Jews object to the no-hide laws? So if anybody objects to the no-hide laws, just to say, well, you're either atheist or you're an anti-Semite, and screw you, right? That's how you go about it. And there's no need to talk about race unless you're really stupid. Annapurna says, what I fear is a similar everybody's going to be coffee-colored and having the liberal value of sexual liberation. So we're all going to be, sexually liberated degenerates. Do whites or browns? Of course they bloody get a leader. They just have to choose one, right? They don't even want one. That is a problem. It's like, I was trying to get Carol to say, well, we need a leader. And she's saying, it's not these people, it's not those people. And I say, okay, fine, but they need one. And they'll have to choose one. And it's like, oh, but the oligarchy and they're corrupt. It's like, no, forget the present. Just theorize that if things are going to get better, some leadership is involved, right? Because there's no, the Messiah ain't coming to just wave his magic wand and make everything fine. People have to organize themselves and at least acknowledge what the problem is, right? That's the least you can do. So I'm saying Christianity is kaput. The only thing that it is good for and is supposed to do is to say to liberals that they get to go to heaven too. What else is a church for? So Carol doesn't want to be rude to Christians. I know, it's like you have to be, because otherwise they won't get it. You can drop hints, they won't get it. It's like, well, do you care that you're guilty of idolatry and your mortal soul is imperiled by your the worship of the Trinity? And they go, nah, who cares? We've been doing it for so long. A few more millennia of worshipping an executed blasphemer won't do us any harm. They don't get it. And when on previous occasions when I've tried to make the point to Carol, she'll say, oh, but I like Jesus. And it's like, it's not the point. It's like, Jesus is respected in Islam, isn't he? So if you talk to Muslims, they'll say, Jesus, peace be upon him. He's a prophet of God, and we also accept the virgin birth. Good. So this means that Christians can move on over to Islam without being told that Mary's a slut and Jesus was guilty of blasphemy, which is, well, I guess, difficult for them if they ever took it seriously. So that's a reason. So they should be pleased that there exists a religion for them to move on over to Islam without having their previous beliefs trashed and stamped to the ground. They should be grateful for that. And this is the point of the different narrative of the crucifixion of Jesus, right? So the Islamic narrative is that Jesus didn't die on the cross. He only appeared it only appeared that he died on the cross. God lifted him directly to him, right? So it's like, yay, we don't have to worry, if we're Christians that he died horribly. We're given this narrative that is positive and not horrible for Jesus. They should be happy. These Christians should be happy that the Quranic narrative says that, God acknowledges the prophethood of Jesus. He didn't suffer terribly and go to hell, as is the Nicene Creed, because I've seen in churches carved in stone the narrative that Jesus actually went to hell. He died and he went to hell and he was resurrected and stuff. It's all, really very odd and inexplicable. But anyway, the Quranic narrative is clear. So it means that, and if you ask Muslims about the, what happens to people after they're dead, it's like, do they go straight to heaven? And it's like, no, we don't go straight to heaven. We spend the time between when we die and the end times arriving, reflecting on our lives and our sins. But so we can get from the Islamic, the Quranic narrative that Jesus didn't have to hang around in purgatory, because it sounds like purgatory to me. What's the thing that Muslims call? It begins with a B, right? Purgatory in Islam. I think it starts with B, and I've forgotten what it was. I only learned the word recently. Barzakh. Okay, so that's where Muslims go after they're dead. So what that verse in the Quran about Jesus being lifted directly to heaven after not dying on the cross was that he ain't in Barzakh. But I guess the rest of us will have to go there. We don't know what whether Muhammad is in Barzakh. Let's assume that only the prophets of God get to go to heaven, and the rest of us have to, be warehoused in Barzakh. Okay. Well, we can talk about it. I'm not actually a trained theologian. I can just put these questions to you. So basically, how you dispose of not dispose, how you deal with people after they're dead, if you're God, would be a combination of heaven and hell and afterlife, I suppose, because I think the fairest way to dispose of people is like, well, did you ever have principles? Dead person, and the dead person might say, well, I was an atheist, but I always tell the truth and exercised logic and stuck to those principles, and I didn't, and I wasn't a criminal. Do I really deserve to go to hell? And I suppose God could in his mercy say, well, people like you get reincarnated, and so they get a chance, I suppose, to choose a religion, and that's what they do. I think that's fair enough. So, Annapurna asks an interesting question: is conversion for Christians to Islam mandatory, or may Christians and Muslims simply rally behind a common cause and leader? That is such an excellent question. Thank you very much. So I'm saying that you don't even need to be Muslim to support secular Quranism. You don't even have to believe in God. You just have to think as an atheist, like, well, I don't really believe in this God stuff, but I do see that marriage has to be supported, because the whole purpose of government is to breed humans, right? So if you're the government of any country, the most disastrous thing for you to suffer is for there to be no people in your country after some, disastrous pestilence or famine or whatever, and there's just not enough people to do stuff. So you would want your country to be populated, and if you want your country to be populated, you would want to breed humans for your country, and you would have to breed them in a eugenic way, and this means supporting marriage. That's it. What's so hard about understanding that? It's like, well, obviously, if the next generation have to be produced, they have to be produced in the optimum condition, so that they're not crazy or criminal or yeah. Well, you want them to be well-adjusted, productive citizens, not criminals or inmates of a lunatic asylum, or unmarriageable bastards. You don't want that. So you're saying the only way to make everybody respect marriage is to ensure that they are also reared by their own married parents, so they can see the point of it. And that's why marriage has always been unquestioningly supported by all kinds of countries all over the world. Right? And it's as simple as that. And so if you go to any old civilization, you will know that they were patriarchies, and patriarchies are societies that prioritize the preferences of married parents. And that is what the purpose of religion is. Because if you think of the 5 world religions, they all support marriage, right? That would be Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. 5 world religions. No point talking about the, smaller groups, because the only reason why they are the 5 world religions is because they all support marriage, until the Christians got a better idea, and this happened when Christendom fell. So when Christendom fell, they didn't properly acknowledge it. They didn't think, oh, right, oops, we need something better than, liberalism. But, because their ruling classes sort of thought, well, we'll just make up the rules as we go along. What's a problem anyway? And this was what they did. And here is where they have arrived at. And it's not a good place. So basically, if you go back to the founding fathers, Adams was saying the Constitution is not enough. You need, principled politicians who will take the Constitution seriously and follow it. Not cheats and liars and cowards and hypocrites who only pretend to follow the Constitution but don't in fact do it. And for that, you need an official moral system, and by that I mean a moral system with a list of rules, and that's why I've arrived at the Quran. I mean, because, well, what else is there? It can't be the Torah, right? Can it? You're not Jews, or most people, 99% of the global population are not Jews. So it can't be the Torah, and we know from the Jews that half of them are not Torah Jews, are they? But at least Muslims, whatever their faults, still try to follow the Quran in their, messy, distorted, imperfect way. They have an idea that they should follow Sharia. And therefore, at least you can do something with these people. Maybe they're still capable of shame, right? It's like, well, what happened to your caliph? You didn't follow your own rules properly. Why did the caliphate crash and burn? Well, because, they broke the 4 wise max rule, right? We know that the Ottoman Emperor had an imperial harem. And this means that he didn't follow the 4 wise max rule. And there were, probably a whole host of other rules he didn't follow, but that's the most obvious one. If you have an imperial harem, it means that you're not following the 4 wives max rule. And you can just, it's like, well, and actually, according to Sunnis, there are only 4 rightly guided caliphs. So it just means that all the ones after the 4 rightly guided caliphs were not rightly guided because they were monarchs. A caliph cannot be a king, right? And interestingly, it is really the Iranians who found that out, because they're the only country that managed to get their country back using Islam, and they are the world's most powerful Islamic republic. But I'm saying America could beat them by adopting secular Quranism with American characteristics. And if America doesn't want to do that, China could become the caliphate if it were to adopt secular Quranism with Chinese characteristics, or even the Indians. They could adopt secular Quranism with Indian characteristics. So I'm not saying that it's definitely going to be the supreme leader of Iran. So I think now is the perfect opportunity of global secular Quranism. Now I'm sorry that Carol rage quit, but perhaps I was a bit hasty in anticipating that she's just going to say, oh, that she's not going to even try because the oligarchy is so corrupt, and she prefers political parties anyway, and she won't be seen dead supporting a one-party state. This I know she has said previously, and maybe I was hasty in anticipating that she would say that, but she was just making all the kind of no voices that I believed. Okay, thank you for making the point. Uniparty state, yes, you want it to be officially a one-party state, not just a de facto one. You want a de jure uniparty state, and you'll actually have a national party of America, and all the others will be abolished. The Republican Party, the Green Party, they will have to be officially abolished. You have to do it properly, and you can't just sort of say it's yes and no at the same time. So I'm saying these points have to be made very clearly, and maybe it's helpful that Carol rage quit because she obviously doesn't agree with me about one-party theocracy, about abolishing political parties, about making it very clear to Christians that they are idolaters and blasphemers. And it's like, yeah, I get it. She doesn't want to offend her Christian relations and whatever. And it's like, well, actually, I have Christian relations, but I know that to make an omelette, you have to be prepared to break a few eggs. And it's only by taking these clear positions that your position is finally understood. Yes, thank you, Annapurna, for do you want to join me? Would you like to join me? Because, I don't really want to talk to myself the whole time after. Anyway, I'll give you the link in case you fancy joining me. So that's a problem. It's like, yeah, I get it that I basically rounded up a whole bunch of these sacred cows that Westerners regard as sacred, and I'm proposing to slaughter them. They can't take it. Hello, Annapurna. Welcome.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Thank you for coming, and it's good to hear a new voice.
I appreciate that. The Machine Lies is my friend, and that's how I found you.
Oh,
But
good.
I get your point of view. I understand what you're saying.
Well, you were asking so many sensible questions. I was so happy to read them. Really, thank you for coming.
Um, yeah, so keep going. I think that there's a Hindutva movement. So I'm from India. I live in the United States now, but there's a Hindu movement, sort of lashing out against this. I'm gonna say quote unquote liberal stuff, and I think Starbucks just released like their first transgender ad in India, and I don't think it went down too well, but
Hmm.
they did it anyway. And
Hmm.
yeah, so there is a pushback in the sense like Hindus are ready now to get up and fight using arms and like just to make a Hindu state, like, and that would be it, like a Hindu nationalist state.
Yeah, this population reduction. I mean, it will, it won't just happen to white people or yellow people. It will happen eventually to, brown and black people. But yes,
Correct.
currently there are more, brown people, um, you know,
Right.
than any other group, I think. But they're just, they're just as keen to corrupt your morals.
Right, which Twitter, when it was still Twitter and not X, the CEO was a lady and she came over to India, and then they were like smash the Brahmin patriarchy or something, like they had a sign up, and it was real interesting that they had like that sign up in the Twitter office, with this white lady, I mean, I guess American, coming in, and yeah, so they're going for it. Like like the in India, there's already movements that are about 100 years old that say that we're not, we don't have anything uniting us, even though that there's so much evidence to the contrary, and that that just putting these narratives from out here over there, like the whatever underrepresented groups or the transgender or whatever, like they're creating all these minorities out there.
To
And
undermine the people at the top. I mean, I've spoken to
exactly.
Indian men who are really triggered by feminism, saying, the NGOs just come and give free phones to women. And
Correct. Yeah, and then they radicalize them too because I mean, yeah, okay, like wife beating and shit exists, but it's like they're saying, "Oh, this is wrong what your husband does," but then they inculcate these same women into another cult via a women's group or whatever, like you're saying an NGO. So they'll even give them micro loans to start their own business so that they can leave their man and
hmm.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, at heart, it does look like it's the Christians who are promoting global homo, the policies of Sodom and Gomorrah globally, because the Americans do have a global empire, and they're doing it, all the way down under to, the Scandinavian countries.
Right. Who are following along. Like they're the number one, right, in all of this. And I mean, when I came to this country, I came as an exchange student, and I was just part of like this group of a lot of Europeans, and I mean they were already, like, I mean, like those girls are like, you don't have to be a virgin and shit like that. So it's a female empowerment to be sexually empowered, which means like to sleep around, right? And
Hmm.
yes,
It's all that malign encouragement, isn't it?
right,
It's so satanic. I mean, I'm just an agnostic, but I think, I mean, okay, I use it in the sense of um, rebellion from God's laws, or what I
right.
believe to be God's laws. And it's like, they're so helpful. I think they're so helpful, all these rules, because even if they say, well, everybody breaks these rules, it's like, well, at least you'll know who broke them, right? And who
Right.
keeps them.
Well, and then you have something as a marker to come back to. I mean, imagine having no rules and Like some of these gals, their mom had told them to sleep around, and that
Really?
was a good thing. Yeah.
What, Indians?
No, no, I'm talking about Scandinavian, like
Oh,
Sweden,
yeah.
Norway. Maybe even some Welsh gals were in there. Yeah, Welsh
Mhm,
and Irish gals too.
mhm.
But I noticed they were much more conservative than their English counterparts. So I had a lot of friends from England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and Norway, the Netherlands. Sweden, even Finland. There was a Finnish girl there. But yeah, that's who I'm referring to in this. Like their moms had told them it was all right to sleep around, and one of them even said, like, her mom said to have a lot of boyfriends at once. So,
Wow, wow. It's so crazy. And
yeah, because I was real young, my first year in college, so I felt like a country bumpkin that had no, I mean, it's whatever, it's like older women upon younger impressionable girls. Like you try to be like them, you want to be like your elders, right? You subconsciously look up to them. And I was like, oh my God, am I just like this little girl from India that is like that does not know anything about freedom or
crikey.
empowerment? Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I suppose I go on like this because I think that the solution is relatively simple. It's like you just need a rule system, right? You just need a list of rules. You
Correct.
need to just say that, our group, our country, we're going to, obey those rules from low to high, male to female, old to young. We're all going to obey those rules. And if we do, we'll be better off than before we started to, before we obeyed those rules. And I think a lot of these rules are fair enough, and it doesn't say you have to believe in this God or that God because of the First Amendment, being supported by
All right.
Chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran, which
Okay.
which the Muslims never mention because they don't seem to know about it. you
Hmm.
know. But actually, a lot of these Muslims don't know their own book at all well.
Right. I think a lot of it is hadith following, right? You just follow the hadiths and
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of mistakes in the Hadith, and actually, a lot of it. I'm not saying all of it is wrong. Some of it is very helpful. I but what they need to do is, you know, regard the
read
Quran
the
as the
Quran.
primary
Yeah.
source,
Have to read.
and any Hadith that disagrees with it as well, to be ignored.
Correct. Yeah. Indeed.
So, have you read the Quran? Because Mashi,
No, because I'm not. I'm not a Muslim. I'm a Hindu.
I'm,
Born and
I'm not a Muslim either, but I mean, I
uh,
have read. I
oh,
do have
you
a
have.
copy of the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay. And did you read the Quran in Arabic, or are you reading it?
Oh gosh, no, no, I just read the Penguin translation. Uh,
Right, because the like machine and stuff, they I think they went to Quranic school, like my Muslim friends in school, so they have to learn it in Arabic, which I respect because we had to learn Sanskrit and read our texts and it's clear, it's not like there's 20 million interpretations. It's very clear, and male and female distinctions are clear, and I know a lot of the what maybe Zionists would be the right word, but they love to come to Hinduism and then claim idol worship and just kind of like sexualize weird aspects of it. I don't know, it's weird stuff they do, but there's nothing in support of transgender or anything like that in Hinduism.
so a group of people who are supposed to be transgender who are
So that's actually pretty horrific. So it's not I don't know why they haven't been like stopped by the police, but it's a group of people called Hinjdas, so it's male. It's males that have castrated themselves. So they will have new babies come in, and I don't know how they procure these babies. A lot of times it's like seedy dealings where the babies are stolen or unwanted, and then they castrate them. And I believe they castrate them on some kind of altar, and then like they become female, right? So there's like, oh, now you're a female. And this group, like, oh my god, so they engage in prostitution. It's like the cheapest kind of prostitutes around. You know that they're these hinged up people or transgender people. And then there is some kind of belief from back in the days of the kings where there used to be one naturally born hermaphrodite, if there was in the kingdom, would be in the court of the king. But it's not like this taking and cutting the genitalia off and all of that. So this using this superstition, these hinged up people, they're so aggressive. So they'll come up to you at a stoplight or something, and they'll start fucking touching you. You know, they'll frisk you. They'll touch your boobs and all that as a female. They might even grab your member, your reproductive organ as a man at a fucking stoplight. Yeah, and you have to give money. Like, that's the exchange. Like, you want me to stop, you have to give money. You don't want me to curse you, you have to give me money. So I do not know why this is just like let to go, you know. And I mean, I guess it's like a sinister black magic type thing, but it's just left unchecked. And I'm sure, you know, the cops are probably having sex with these prostitutes, and so they cut them a deal or whatever. They don't arrest them. Yeah. So this is you know, people like to say, oh, there's transgenders in India for a long time, but they won't ever say this, like what it really is people stealing babies, male children, and castrating them. That's just fucked up, in my opinion. Sorry for my language.
Oh, that's terrible. Right. But I guess I'm trying to say that, I mean, would it horrify you, the idea of secular Quranism with Indian characteristics?
No, it wouldn't, not me, but I think that what they're gonna do, you know, because they hate Muslims right now in India. So
I heard a story that it's not really so much about Muslim hatred, but Hindutva promote it because they don't want the Shudras to rise up against them, so they make them fight the Muslims.
oh, you think so? It could be.
That's what I heard anyway.
It could be, but like all my school teachers and stuff are completely, you know, they're completely against remove all Muslims, all Christians. And they cite these things, and you know, it's all politics, because it's our same, it might even be the same Hindu politicians financing these quote unquote conversion campaigns, which to my understanding, if you convert someone like that by force to Islam, it's not even valid. But they have these campaigns where they give some food, some money, and some coercion in order to change them from.
Well, the Christians do that to Jews and
Correct.
Muslims, so you know, I guess it's not.
Yeah.
You know, they do. You know, well, some preachers are quite persuasive, I suppose. But you know, maybe you get them for, you know, a day, and then they slide back into their disbelief. But I mean, you know, my point is that, you know, everybody follow the rules. You don't have to believe, but obviously it would help you
Yeah,
obey
but
the rules if you did believe.
well, it's
but
like you don't have to
do.
believe in taxes right now, but you got to pay them. You know what I mean? So, and everybody does pay them. So why not enforce? I mean, come on, you know, it's like this is such we're in such crapola right now if we think like marriage can be between man and beast and all that. But
Yeah. So it interferes with the production and parenting of the next generation. And this means we're all going to be in trouble.
Right, because there might not be enough of a next generation by the
No, I
time
mean,
we're
they'll just,
70, 80.
they're already doing this. Have you considered killing yourself if you're feeling a bit depressed?
Right.
You know,
In Canada, I heard that's, yeah. Well, is it in the United States as well? Oh God.
I don't know, but I think, it seems to,
Well, they're
it
not even
started
calling
in
it euthanasia.
Switzerland.
They're calling it medical assistance in dying in Canada. And it's like you're saying, if you're depressed, if you have some kind of mental illness, it's promoted.
Yeah, it's actually quite rude if you can imagine it. Imagine if your parents said, Anna
Yeah,
Turner,
just go
would
off
you do this
yourself.
if you didn't get married or have children? You'd be offended, wouldn't you?
Yeah. 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 Yeah, but I'm late to the game in my family for marriage. I'm recent, so I was almost, I was close to 30. So yeah, I already got those comments, but it's whatever. I'd rather people be telling me to get married than not. So,
Well, I mean, the thing is, yes, I think that there's all this pessimism. It's like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be, marrying well, so I won't talk about it. But the thing is, I don't know if you've heard my conversations with Vincent Bruno, who's
I
gay
heard a
and
bit of
married.
Vincent. I heard a bit, but he didn't let you speak much. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was trying to tell him that it's okay for you. You can do all this. Marriage is you need it to produce the next generation and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, because he's gay, nobody's going to say, right, because you said that, we're going to force you to marry a woman and force you to pay
Right.
for her stuff and the kids. It's like, well, no, it's not going to happen to him. People will just say thank you, saying for seeing that marriage is a burden for heterosexuals, and thank you for at least saying that it should be supported, even if you don't personally want to do it.
Right, because at the moment it's a nightmare to even think of having children. I'm not saying I won't. It's just like I wish to have had kids already, but it's just not conducive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess
And
our
people
ancestors
people are
just did it
highly
without thinking.
unsympathetic to parents. They're highly unsympathetic to parents right now. And like people almost hate parents currently.
Yeah, they say things like, "Oh, it's such a terrible place. Why would you bring children into this terrible
Correct.
world of ours?
Correct.
It's gonna get blown up in World War III anyway," and all this rubbish. And it's like, well, we've we've lived. The human race has lived through far worse things than feeling a bit depressed about the economy, which is basically, it's like, oh, they've had pestilence and invasion and
Right.
famine and
What
and
about
and
World War II? You know what I mean? Like people
yeah.
were growing. They managed to grow 40% out here in the states of their food just because of government push. So I mean, it's underestimated what the impact of government push can have.
Yeah, or lack of government trying to put a spanner in the works, saying, "Oh no, have you considered, um, child in an elementary school? Have you considered um, spending your entire life masquerading as a member of the opposite sex? Well, you should. You should. Really, you should. And if your parents tell you not to, tell us, and we'll take you away from them."
Right, which is like one of the big reasons I'm not yet there. Yeah, because
Well, so the
we're
least
working
we
out
can
of
do.
something with our parent, like my in-laws and my parents, and we're working on a system so that they don't have to touch the public school system. But even then, like kids have friends that are other kids that are in public school, and Like, what are you gonna do? You know, it's just
Well, the whole thing has to change, which is why, secular Quranism. And it's like, well, I'm not exactly asking you to climb up Mount Everest without supplies or oxygen. All you have to do is talk about it. Not even, it would be great if you were approving of it, but, you can hate it and still talk about it. Just as long as you talk about it to somebody else. Like, is that the only way to solve our demographic problems? White and non-white people? It's like, have you heard of a better idea? And people haven't. I've been doing it I first conceived of secular Quranism in 2009, and all I've got is people refusing to talk about it, the ones who really, really hate it. And it's like, well, have you got a better idea? And
the
I'm
status
particularly,
quo, right? The better idea is the status quo.
yeah, and that's it. Elise Carroll, did go around saying that to people, and they have no answer. They haven't got anything better, but they still, basically they say, well, they would rather die and go to hell than discuss something that,
Could
that
be
might
used
actually
as
help them in this life.
yeah, yeah, I agree. But it's like the afraidness, right? I guess they got us where they want us, like sitting ducks and afraid. Because you're so afraid that things might get worse, you're not trying to make them better. You
Yeah, it's
just
kind of like, don't rock the boat. Don't say anything.
right,
And just stay silent and don't say anything, and it might just not notice and go away, like, I don't
right.
know, a bird of prey or something.
Oh my god, it sounds like the ostrich with the head in the sand. You're right.
Exactly. And they're so crazy and stupid, and I can't stand
But
it anymore.
it's a lot.
That's why I get a bit impatient.
Well, I think Carol, no offense to her, if she's listening or not, but you, you, like you're saying, she's worried about what her family relations might think. And a lot of females just hate this kind of talk, because it's immediately anti feminism in their mind. And yeah, I'm sorry to say, but females really put down other females a lot. I guess this has been a theme we've been talking about, but it's like I told you, the mom telling the child, go and be promiscuous, go use men, because they used us in the past or whatever, like these kind of toxic ways of being empowered are all normalized among females. But then you bring something actual to the table and you want to actually voice your own opinion, and then feminism's out the window, like fuck you is the name of the game. We don't care if your ideology doesn't match up with ours. We're going to be mean to you. And yeah, women can be pretty nasty at each other. And yeah, I guess that's what causes females to stay in line.
Well, the men are not that much nicer to each other, but so I guess we just need to find, a group that tolerates our opinions and allows a bit of, discussion about, what to do, so that the circle enlarges to include other people not originally in the group. But I'm saying, it's like it doesn't matter whether you're, white or black. It's like we all need to produce the next generation. Hopefully, in a within wedlock, and you would expect the government to want to support this enterprise, but they
Right.
don't. They're also
Right.
crazy.
But now, even, that the left is saying baby making is evil, right? Right now. Because I had a neighbor, oh my God. I didn't even want to talk politics, but like all of a sudden he's like, oh, well, these baby, like they're pushing to make babies. All that is because they don't want to get replaced and white people are afraid. And I said, yo, but like when I get to age 80, there's not going to be enough people. Like, forget the race. There's just not going to be enough people. Like, what do you
You look
talk like?
after us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, they're not thinking straight.
No,
Because
it's just like reactionary. Like, that's my opinion, with all due respect of Mr. Bruno, Vincent Bruno. It's just like reactionary. It's not about the long game. It's just about, like, I'm right, you're wrong right now, in my opinion. It's really not about what you're looking at is, well, we're in serious trouble and how do we stop it?
yeah, but it's sort of like, well, breeding the traditional way is the quickest way of doing it, instead of waiting for artificial wombs to, be invented and be rolled. It's like, and I was saying, well, you can still promote your artificial, I'm not going to stop you. And it's like, no, no, no. And I say, well, it's only, you're refusing to cooperate because you don't really care. You don't really care, and obviously you're not promoting it because it's not your idea. So he said, "Oh, but I do promote it just by talking to you because the other ones, the nationalists and people like that, they're deliberately not talking about it, and that's undeniably true." But I mean, the worst thing is these Muslims, right? You would have thought they think, oh, somebody wants to take a leaf out of our book, hooray! But not a bit of it. It's like, oh, you're
Right.
not even Muslim, and you're a woman, and you have to do things exactly as we say.
Oh my God. I didn't think about that, but you're right. That is to be expected, I suppose.
Yeah. And okay, I'm thinking, maybe brown people have more energy, than white people.
Yeah,
Because
but
I met
it's
more of them.
destructively used, right? Because that's so funny, Claire. Because that's the same argument I get in the Hindu circles. Like, back in the day, I was trying to get into some Facebook groups and discuss like some probable solutions. But it's like, oh, what is this lady doing here? And they just call me secular. Like, they just call me secular and remove me from any group. So
They call you secular and removed you. These what, Muslims?
no, Hindus, my fellow Indian people.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there's almost no rest for being attacked, by the
Right,
other side and your own side.
right, right.
Because I guess your own side will stab you in the back, and the other side will stab you in the front. So you have to. But I think so that was what I was trying to say to Carol. It's like, well, there's no point talking to people at the bottom. So everybody just try and find the higher status person they know, and pass the message upwards. Isn't that the way to do it?
Indeed. But it would require, you would have to be wise and smart about it, not just like, it requires a little nuance, right? Because if I know that this guy or girl is like of the opposing political view, you're not just gonna like lay it down thick. You know what I mean? Like, you have to ease them into it or whatever.
I mean,
But it
yeah.
would require a lot of trial and error too, and I guess getting off the couch, within quotes.
Well, I mean, I'd be really happy if Indians wanted it, because if Indians were really keen, other countries might say, well, we don't,
You don't want to be left behind, so they might follow
exactly.
through. Yeah.
So,
I don't know
so
if India's
I'm
gonna
not
be
fussy about
primed.
who adopts it.
I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
I'm just saying I'm not fussy about who adopts it, because just say if the Chinese were to adopt it, or the
Right.
Indians, or, you know,
It should be America, right? Like you
yeah,
were
because then
saying
that
in
would be
the
the
carol.
quickest way. That would be the quickest way, because then
Quickest,
if
yeah.
America adopts it, the
'Cause
rest
we're
of
the
the West
most
would adopt it.
depraved right now. We're the most depraved. We're the most in need. So might as well
Yes,
adopt it.
exactly. And then the Israelis will adopt it, right? Because, basically Israel is just a colony of America, but nobody wants to admit that.
Right. Well, I thought America was a colony of Israel. That's what I thought. But, I am aware of the establishment, like 1947, I think, or 1946. But um, it just
Well, I
seems
mean,
like
quite a
America
few of
does
these
whatever war
Israeli.
Israel wants them to do. They fight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you sometimes I hear them complain. These ultra orthodox rabbis. It's like I just went to America and I opened an account, and then I got a letter from the IRS, and it's like, do they think they own us? You know, And it's like, yeah, yeah, they do. And it's like, well, the money they give us for military support, it's all rubbish. The planes and whatnot that they send us. We have to take the internal stuff out and put a better one in, our better engines or circuitry or whatever. So, so yeah, they sort of complain. But yeah, I mean, uh, I think it would work. I think it's fair enough. I've recently been trying to say, look, if you don't like inheritance tax, the Islamic inheritance rules will mean you have no inheritance tax. How about that?
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, have a look at it. If you don't believe me. But I
So,
mean, the whole reason for the Islamic inheritance rules is to not have inheritance tax.
right. So, like within the Hindu religion, there's no tax on here inheritance.
You're roboting. I can't hear you. I guess you're out of range.
Say, Claire?
Oh yes, I can hear you again. You kind of dropped out for a bit, but I can't hear you speaking now. Hello, hello, Annapurna. Oh, but perhaps Mike will join us. He's an American
Yeah,
Christian.
Mike hates Islam though. Just letting you know.
Yes,
Hopefully,
yes, I'm aware.
the what I was trying to say is within the Hindu religion, there's no tax on inheritance, and there's actually it's very wise. Like there is a certain wealth imparted to the village as such, like the ruler, and then that
Hmm.
wealth passes on to the next ruler, and it's just for the needs of the village, and then the other other things are like, okay, personal inheritance, personal wealth is kept separately, and neither is taxed. So but the IRS in India does tax, that's all government imposed taxation. So
Hmm.
yeah, and I'm also for, I don't really care for women's suffrage, and I guess that might be a controversial take, but it's as long as you don't tax me, I'm fine. It's like, all right, I don't need to vote. Just don't tax me as a female. Don't do that. But yeah, I'm pretty against taxation myself. But that's just
Yeah. Well, no one likes being taxed, but I mean, as long as you think, okay, they're not wasting our money and starting wars, and
right. But they are, and then it's being
mhm.
used. Like you heard about this crap about some transgender surgery in a prison and all that being funded. So it's just, all that kind of stuff. So it's not just that they're wasting it. It's they're using my money to fund things that I'm morally against. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Hi,
So are you?
Mike.
Hey, how's it going, ladies?
Like, what's up?
Are you in India or are you an American? or where are you, if I may ask?
In the United States, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you what you thought of Modi when he did the cash exchange and they timed it during the wedding season or something.
It hurt a lot. My
That
parents had to stand in line, I think, for like close to 12 hours at the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, Claire, what were you talking about? Planes? They take all the electronics out? Were you talking about the Israelis?
This is what Rabbi Mizrahi said. He used to work in the Israeli Air Force,
Right.
and he was saying that that's what the Israelis do when they get American equipment.
Sure. My dad worked for Honeywell in Space and Strategic Avionics Division. So I remember he told a story one time. He was at Edwards Air Force Base and they were showing him the new F-15 Eagle. This was back in like the 70s or 80s. And he said across the tarmac there was a F-111 Aardvark, I think he said, and it's sitting there and it had a rope around it and had an armed guard by it. And my dad talked to the general. He's like, well, can we go look at that plane? He's like, no, we can't look at that one. That's an Israeli plane. And my dad goes, it looks kind of funny. And they're like, yeah, well, they had every countermeasure known to man on it. They cut the belly out, put in more flares, more countermeasures. I know like our F-35s that they're flying now, they modified the fuel tank and the range on them so they could get to Iran and back without refueling. So yeah, they modify our planes quite a bit.
Thank you for confirming what Rabbi Mizrahi said. Yeah.
Well, if you got it from a guy straight from the Air Force and the Israelis, he would know as well. But
yes.
Yeah, my dad worked on a lot of the electronics in those planes and stuff. So anyways, Claire, how does 411, how is that structured to avoid paying inheritance tax?
No, I'm just saying if you adopt the Islamic inheritance rules, then there's no need for inheritance tax because the justification of it is to I mean, what is it? It's like, well, people already pay tax. They pay income tax when they're alive, and they pay tax on their dividends if they invest in anything, and capital gains, and then when you're dead they want to tax you some more. It's obviously too much. Pay and pay and pay and pay.
I think America, they moved the estate tax up. Your estate has to be over, I think, $600,000. And even
that's
then,
not much these days.
No, it's not a huge amount of money. But
well, you just have to own a house, and your kids won't get it.
Well, they might be taxed on the sale of it, but actually, you've got to be pretty much a moron to pay inheritance tax in America. You just create a living trust, and it can all be transferred around. There's tons of loopholes around inheritance tax. I mean, the only people who pay inheritance tax are when somebody died and they didn't even know they're an heir to them, probably. But yeah, you can do irrevocable trusts and living trusts and things like that can avoid inheritance taxes. Right. I don't know about in the UK, but in America.
Yeah, that's how it's done as well. But I'm just saying that it's a principle of the thing.
Right. But it is
somebody might die intestate and that kind of
Indeed,
thing.
Yeah. Well, and then like the use, like even if you paid tribute back in the day, it was used upon your village or in your like you could see the use of the tribute there. Notwithstanding the greed of kings, of course, but I'm just saying, like, it was local, you could see it. Now it's like, oh, well, is this ephemeral space force or whatever? I mean, like, what are they spending it on?
Yeah, the federal taxation should be much lower. We should eliminate a ton of federal government.
Well, it was only imposed, income tax was only imposed in World War I, and it was supposed to be temporary to fund the war. So,
sure.
It hasn't gone away.
Right. That's true. And Eisenhower warned about the military-industrial complex. But yeah, the federal income tax should be repealed. I live in Florida. We don't have a state income tax. We have county taxes, obviously, just fund the schools and stuff. And, You still got to build roads. I'm all for the gas tax going towards the interstates. I'm big on user.
But I really, supposedly that's already paid for. Like utilities are already paid for, and it's not through taxes. It's like, I don't know about roads, but most utilities, they pay for themselves.
Sure,
Or
the
like
utilities.
once the infrastructure is put in, there's no like extra cost, so to speak, that has to come out from taxpayer money.
Well, here in Florida, we're hardening our electrical grid for sure. They're burying more and more stuff. I was just down at my buddy's house in St. Pete, and they're putting in pad transformers and stuff. We're under Duke Energy, and they just asked for like a. So I don't know if Claire knows this, but in America, like electrical utilities are usually privatized, and they're given a franchise over areas, so they don't have any competition. So they're still regulated by how much they can charge you, but they are profitable. And yeah, they have to build all the infrastructure and maintain it. And then they charge you whatever per kilowatt per hour. And usually it's a progressive scale.
Yeah, but then you notice that during Christmas, they increase the electricity rate across the board, giving the excuse that, oh, we need to light up the town or whatever.
I don't know.
They increase a per kilowatt rate. Because I'm on that, whatever. I just want to know where my money's going. So I check the utility bills. And this is a trend I noticed since the past 4 years, that sometimes double, so 100% increase during the holiday.
Maybe they have, like I said, some sort of progressive deal on total consumption that allows them under their franchise license to do that. You know what I'm saying? That. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, how far away is that? You got to grease a few palms and you can have that, like how it's like the energy companies got big time lobbies as well.
The Quran regulates consumer relations as well as labor relations and gender relations. Very useful. And I forgot to mention international relations.
Give us the verses on those, Claire.
I don't know off the top of my head which particular ones. Give a man his due. That sounds, a fair day's wage for a fair day's work.
Okay, not very detailed. I thought you might have a few more details. Like how would you under secular Quranism fund like the Hoover Dam, right?
Well, the government would pay.
Right, but you're the Khalifa, right? You're taking in 2.5% tax, right? That's what?
No. I think the zakat thing is just nonsense anyway, because it's a kind of tax, and they say it's not. It's like no. If it's charity, let it be charity, and everybody pay according to their means, and then if you have philanthropists, and let them build the Hoover Dam if they're rich enough to pay for it on their own, and then they can call it the rich capitalist dam, if they want their name put to it or whatever. I mean, people could still do that.
Sure. So you're paying.
So it has to be a flat rate income tax of 20%. That's what I'm proposing.
So you got a flat income tax of 20%. But that's not in the Quran anywhere, right?
It is comes. It's a fifth.
Oh, okay. Now that's a fifth of your income?
Yeah, and that's sort of low enough. I think 20% is a kind of magic number in that,
but then you wouldn't have transaction fees. You wouldn't have like all these additional fees, right? Just have that one thing and that's it.
Yeah, and
people have been proposing a flat tax for years. I mean, Pete DuPont was big. Steve Forbes was, when he ran for president, that was like his main platform, was a 20% flat tax. The problem is the liberals hate flat taxes.
We have to denounce the liberals. A lot of people have to be shamed, and this was why Carol left. She doesn't want to shame anybody. She wants to be nice, and it's like I'm afraid you have to break a few eggs to make your omelette. But
Right.
then, she's a nice lady. I'm not a nice lady. I do what I have to do, or at least say what I have to say.
But you know why the liberals hate flat taxes, right?
Because they want to tax us more.
Right. Well, the concept is, right, say I make $10,000 a year and you make $100,000 a year. I still have to pay rent, buy food, all the necessities, and I'm getting taxed $1,000. So that $1,000 to me is a lot more important. That would be 10%. I get taxed $2,000, right? So now I'm only
Okay,
left
well,
with $8,000
under
to
my
live on.
system, the low-waged pay no tax.
Okay, so you're going to give a tax exemption through the first $50,000 or something.
Well,
Or
there would be a
25,000.
ban on
Currently
salaries.
20.
Pardon?
The current tax exemption, I believe, is below 20,000 in the U.S.
That's very low.
Yeah, I
That's
think
not
it's
a livable wage.
I
No,
think
no.
it's
Okay, so what I imagine happens is that there will be a range of salaries that go from low to high that we will know about. It's like, I guess some people get paid, millions of dollars. And then, out of that range, you can get like, well, if you're in mid-range, you start paying tax. And then
Yeah, so it's somewhat
and then if
progressive.
anyone below that pays no tax. How about that?
Right, and that's what our current system is. Your first however much money is untaxed, but then you start getting taxed at a different percent. It goes all the way up to, I don't even know what the highest tax bracket is right now. 30.
Maybe 40% or something.
Yeah, it's
But the
around
point is 20% is a magic number because it's just low enough for people to just pay up without arguing about it. But if it's 99% or something, of course the rich man is gonna hire his tax and tax lawyers and tax accountants to avoid it. So if you make it sort of nice and low and people aren't going to argue about it, and then you probably get then it won't be so hard to collect. But a lot of obvious things are not being done. It's like, well, why wouldn't you support a good education system? Why wouldn't you just change things around to make things better? And they just refuse for no good reason.
Well, I mean, they disagree on what is better. I was just watching a YouTube video, and the guy was at the school board saying his daughter brought home this lesson where this was in California, of course. They were all supposed to stand in a circle, and they all were now gay and lesbian, and how would they come out to their parents? He's like, how in the world is this a lesson in school?
It's indoctrination.
Yeah. I called the principal, and he said, no, that's not part of it. And then I called the school board, and they said, yeah, that is the curriculum. And he's like, I've been going back and forth for 2 months now. So I finally got a meeting for next month or something. But yeah, we need to get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Well, yes, because
apparently they don't teach civics in schools anymore.
Yes, that was what Carol was saying, and civics is part of knowing how to behave as a good American, right? Not littering and whatever.
And you know how your government functions.
Or not? I don't know. Is that how it's taught?
What's that, civics?
Yeah.
To me, civics was always like government. Like in high school, I had a government class, but before that, you talked about the 3 branches of government. We had Schoolhouse Rock back when I was a kid, the cartoons on Saturday. I'm only a bill sitting here on Capitol Hill. And you go through Congress,
Yeah,
and
it just
the
says
president can veto it, and then you can override the veto. You should know all that.
right. Well, this dictionary definition is the study of the rights and duties of citizenship.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if no littering was ever in class, but there was a big no littering campaign started with the Indian crime back in the 70s. In fact, the saying "Don't mess with Texas," people think is, oh, everybody's a badass in Texas. That was a tagline for an anti-littering campaign in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of littering in America anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, in the cities, obviously, but used to be you drive down the highways and everybody just throw all their cups out the window and stuff. And they started making it a $500 fine and actually cracking down on it. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't really see a lot of trash anymore on the streets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but think. I mean, that's important because people need to, they need to know what they're supposed to do. But obviously, over time, it changes. That your rights and duties change, or do you have a right to abortion? Why would you be needing an abortion? Why don't you just, I mean, it's such a mess. And say, and therefore, everybody subscribing to the same list of rules would help. So which rule do you find the most objectionable, Mike?
Which rule in the Quran?
Yes.
The no drinking rule, the no sex rule.
Well, under my interpretation of the Quran, there would
Cutting
be.
the hand off of thieves.
Okay, let me just deal with the ones that you've mentioned before we go on to others. So,
Wait, no sex. How are you going to bring children into the world? What are you talking about, Mike?
well, I was going to say that there will be
Enough.
licensed brothels in red light districts for men who don't want to marry. So that would deal with Mike. And the thing is,
I don't want
if
to
Mike
marry. I
wanted
also
to have
don't want
sex
to
with a
visit
woman,
prostitutes.
well, yeah,
that doesn't help.
Well, it should be considered a sexual offense.
So what, you want free sex?
Absolutely.
You want free sex. Well, tough luck, man. Not happening.
Well, that's what I don't like. Y'all trying to take away the loose girl's ability to be loose. I don't want a prostitute, but I don't mind a slut.
Well, sorry. No more sluts are going to exist.
Well, luckily, Claire's apparently been at this for 20 years. The guy said she's only got 5 viewers, so I don't think anything's changing anytime soon.
Well, because Western man is hooked on the idea that it is his human right to have slut sex. That is a problem.
That's right.
Which is a completely horrible proposition from a female.
But I mean, it's like,
because
so
a female
Western
loses
women need to wise up.
It's nothing in return. You give everything up and you get nothing. So, like, what use is that?
Yeah, so they're behaving worse than a prostitute.
The women giving the milk away for free. They get nothing in return. They get to spend a few hours with me. Who wouldn't love that?
So, I mean, why is it that hard for women to wise up that they're being taken for a ride?
Well, I think it's because of other women. Like I said, these older females, they promoted to the younger women. I mean, Jane Fonda is still out there kicking and screaming her message. So, yeah, that's what's cool. And then you get into college, and that's definitely what's cool. So, it's, I think it's a government push that's made it so.
Yeah, so
the government push to unmake it, like you're saying.
Yeah, so it's been normalized, but that's how feminism operates. The advantage of feminism for men is that there will be all these women prepared to have sex with them without insisting on the ring on their finger.
Or even like protection, right?
And then it's like, oh, if I get knocked up, I can get a free abortion from the government. So maybe the women just need to decide what they want to be. Do they want to be wives or prostitutes or women who are worse than prostitutes?
Yeah, because they don't get paid.
There we are.
Well, see, women want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have a little fun when they're young and then settle down with a nice man when they're just before 30.
Well, that's not true, yo. That's not true. Are you crazy?
Well, then,
like what woman wants to be like? Oh, come on. I don't know, Mike. I gotta disagree with that.
Okay, so who? Then explain to me, who are all these women having all this sex that you're talking about? You're saying no, women want to be trad wives, but that's only a recent trend.
No, my mother is a traditional wife, and so
Well,
is my
sure.
grandma. So it's not
Right.
a recent
Your
trend.
mother's over 40, I take it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're all,
But
I'm
your mother's
the daughter of her, and then my grandmother. I mean, it's a whole linear thing. Like all the females in my family, I can point to you and show.
right. Okay. Did they live in America in the 60s and 70s? How old were they at
No,
that point? No. Okay. They come from India.
yeah.
Okay. Very different. I'm talking about American women. I'm talking about mainly probably, well, American raised, blacks and whites. The blacks have been, having babies out of wedlock since, the 70s, 60s, and 70s. The illegitimacy rate in Washington, D.C. is something like 80%. And now the white trash girls are following. I think illegitimacy rates among whites is about 30% nationally now. So they're the ones who don't know how to use birth control, but want to run around. And then they end up saddled with a kid and on the dole and all
No,
that.
it's because the government subsidizes single parenting. That's why.
That's true too. It encourages them to have children out of wedlock. That's a bad idea. I've been for eliminating welfare since I first heard about it. I used to own apartment buildings. I did Section 8 housing. I've seen it firsthand. I remember having Miss Coleman, this woman. She was 21. She had a 5-year-old kid. Her rent was $450 a month for a 2-bedroom back in the 90s. She paid $7 of her rent. Summer comes, her $7 check stops coming. I see her one day. I'm down there fixing something. I'm like, Mrs. Coleman, what happened to your checks aren't coming? She's like, oh, I'm out of work during the summer. I'm like, no, not really. But she's a teacher's assistant. I said, well, next time maybe pay your 3 months ahead, your $21, or you're gonna have to add $7 next time. It's not a big deal. I wasn't really busting her balls for it, but government pays the lion's share of it, obviously. She says to me, well, I don't think I'm going back to work. I think I can make more money on welfare. I said, well, don't you think you should shouldn't you build a resume? She said, what's a resume? I said, work history, so you can get a better job in 2-3 years, maybe, whatever. So she quit. She went on welfare. I guess she didn't read her small print contract for Section 8 housing. She had to have a job. So then they kicked her off Section 8 housing. So then I had to evict her.
You did?
Yeah.
Or you had to call the cops or what?
Well, yeah, you got to file the paperwork. The sheriff literally comes and
Right.
kicks them out if they don't leave. Yeah. So I've seen poor people for 20 years of my life and how they operate and the bad decisions they make. And what I'm saying is, obviously.
But it's not, like you go see some poor people in a third world country. All that is changing now as we speak. The loose women, the trad wives, all of that is changing in India. Like there's a lot more looseness as I was growing up. And apparently in my mother's time, if there was as well, because she opened up to me a little bit about her college days. But what I'm trying to say is the poor over there, they're not subsidized, so they don't act the same way.
Sure.
When
So
the subsidized poor phenomena is much different than an unsubsidized poor.
Sure, because they don't see it as a mistake now, having a child out of wedlock. They see it actually as an advantage. I remember, I don't know, do you remember when Dan Quayle said something about Murphy Brown on TV, having a child out of wedlock, and the left all went crazy, well, how dare, Claire, are you familiar with the Murphy Brown incident?
Never heard of it. What was that about?
Okay, Murphy Brown was a television show. It was a sitcom. Candace Burden was the lead role. She was a reporter or something, professional woman. She's in her 40s, and she decides to have a baby, so like in vitro or something. And Dan Quayle was vice president at the time, right? So it was between 88 and 92. And so he wrote an op-ed like to the New York Times saying, this is terrible. We can't have, this Hollywood
Did she get
stuff.
a sperm donor?
I guess, yeah. On the show, she got a sperm donor.
And she had no husband.
Correct.
Oh.
Now, this is all fictional, of course. It's a television show, but Dan Quayle writes an op-ed saying, we shouldn't be promoting this, just as another lifestyle choice to, purposely have a child out of wedlock, even though she's like a rich professional woman. Maybe she's a news broadcaster or something. But anyway, on the show, there was a huge backlash against him. Right? How dare he tell people how to live their lives? This is government interference. So the government at that time under the Republicans was the exact opposite. They were not encouraging this, although we still had welfare and all that. But, and then I think 20 years later, the Atlanta Constitution, which is a pretty liberal rag out of Atlanta, wrote big headlines, Dan Quayle was right. And then they started with all the stats on how children do coming out of single parent households, how much worse they do. I mean, Ann Coulter was pushing that for quite a while too. Ben Shapiro still mentions it.
But there's today a huge in vitro market in India, by the way. Like, and a lot of females getting in vitro to have children without a man, because man bad.
Are there a lack of men, or they just don't want to marry the women?
They don't want to marry. They don't want to marry. They
Are
can
these
make
like
their money. They don't need a man. Men are all wife beaters anyway, so yeah, we don't need them.
Okay, what do you think of that?
I disagree, obviously. I do not agree with that. I do not even agree with this in vitro bullshit, but whatever. You know how much it costs, right?
That would be banned under secular Quranism.
Okay.
Yeah, because it requires, like, all right, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it requires Planned Parenthood to exist to collect like fetal tissue and shit. And you have to have men like relieving themselves of their reproductive fluid into a test tube. And that's the least of it, but all of it screams abomination at me. Just because I even had a few family members that are married do it, so I know the cost. So they went from the States to India because it was cheaper to get it done. But it's still like 20 to 30 grand that they spend just getting pregnant.
Sure. My nephew's born by in vitro. My sister and her husband did in vitro.
But in this country, I bet it's a lot higher than what I just mentioned.
Yeah, it was 25 years ago. They probably paid even more back then when it was newer.
Right, and then not to mention how many times it fails, right? Because my relative had to, like, it was like 2 to 3 years of just having miscarriages. Like, that's not fucking fun.
Yeah, I think my sister had maybe 3 miscarriages before one took.
Right. And each miscarriage is, I mean, damn, that's serious stuff. You can get postpartum depression from it, and what happens with your body. You could get hemorrhoids. There's just like all this, there's stuff around it that people don't talk about, and it's just like, oh, IVF, the miracle.
Yeah, I don't think it's a miracle, but it's some science. They're probably getting better at it, but I don't know. My one sister-in-law, I think, had 2 or 3 miscarriages just naturally. So you never know. Even nature doesn't work right half the time. Well, less than half the time, but.
Yeah, but it's like, that's after the estrogen progesterone pill, because that's normalized here too, right? I knew girls that were on it even before they got their period. The birth control pill is what I'm talking about. And they're prescribing it for acne, for hormonal imbalance, for a little cramp during period. And that leaves you sterile at the end.
I gotta imagine that's why we gotta need so much in vitro. If you go on the pill when you're 15, 16, even 18 or whatever, you don't get off to your 28 or 32 or something. The system's not just gonna bounce right back,
Well, in my generation, I'm about 31 now, 32 almost, but in college, I seen girls that were prescribed here in the South. It's not even like somewhere up north. I seen girls that were on it since they were 11, and they're still on it in their 30s because they're still in the, you know what I'm talking about. They're still promiscuous and stuff. So yeah,
Okay.
they're probably going to be off it in their 40s, and most of these gals ain't planning to have kids anyway. So
Right. So you're married with children then, I take it?
no children yet. Hoping to have kids soon. Hope to have
Inshallah.
had kids already, but it's just we got to work out a system for them to come into before we have them.
A system? You mean like a political system?
No, like education, childcare, and being in this country. Like, come on, like you really want to raise kids here with all this crap going on? So
Well, why don't you migrate back to India?
because this is my home.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like, all right, but I built my life here, and so did my husband. So yeah,
okay.
and I did try living. I tried living in India and Mexico a little bit, but it's just, I don't know. They said I was too Americanized, that I wasn't going to be able to get used to life around there, and it's just simply, I asked too many questions or whatever. But what? It's just, oh, you're too American.
They told you go back to America, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
And then
I mean, they can't do that because like as long as I can afford to pay and stay there. But the sentiment was pretty clear. Like, don't come here and question our ways.
That's right. Well, if you're in the South, I'm sure you've seen the bumper stickers. Maybe not. Back in the day, we used to bumper stickers. We don't care how you did it up north.
Yeah, I seen that.
And then Yankees come down here and start telling us how to do things. We got our own ways in the South. So can I ask, where do you live in the South?
Georgia.
Georgia. I just talked to a Muslim from Georgia yesterday. And
close to you. Yeah.
What's that? You in Atlanta?
No, I'm not. We're in rural Northeast, but we're close to Florida. Yeah, we're in North Georgia, so not that close. But
no, you're by South Carolina then.
Yep, that's where we go get gas sometimes.
My buddy had
Annapurna's not Muslim.
I know. I was just saying yesterday I met a Muslim. She's a Hindu,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No Muslim would have that avatar there. It's an idol.
What does that avatar? What does that avatar represent?
Well, that's a form that goddess takes to dispel demons, and she actually has two beheaded demons in her hand there. So it's like of a story of a time where two demons were pillaging the earth, that humans cried out for the divine to appear, and that's when she did, and she cut their heads.
Well, there's a character in the Old Testament that beheaded someone.
David and Goliath.
What was the name of the woman who beheaded? What's her name?
Are you thinking of Delilah taking the eyes out of Samson?
No, he cut off the locks of Samson.
Yeah, cut off his hair. That's his strength was in his hair.
But there was a woman who actually cut off the head of some man.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what her name was.
In the Old Testament. It's been 40 years since I read the Bible, so sorry.
So that image is to contrast with the sad state of the feminine currently, where the feminine power is being used to seduce and entrap, where its original place was justice, purity and justice. So that's why I had that.
Like Lady Justice. She has a sword.
Yeah, but she's blind.
She is blind, and she does have the scales.
scales, no sword. Yeah, she's like the passive lady. I mean, it's like they got a passive lady, passive as fuck lady in the courtroom, blindfolded, watching over their proceedings. That's how I look at it.
Right. Well, she's supposed to be blindfolded as in to not see like your class.
Yeah, tabula rasa, right? That's the point of it. But it seems like she's turning a blind eye to all the injustices too.
Yeah, Lady Justice has a sword in her right hand, down by her side. I was like, you crazy.
Oh,
I'm sure. Well, sometimes it's in her left. Here, they got her raising up on one side and the scales on the other.
okay. I seen it with it down, so that's probably
Yeah.
why. I just thought it was like her
Okay.
skirt.
Yeah, no, she hasn't raised it up to. You got to wait to see which way the scales go before she swings her sword, whether you're innocent or guilty.
Right, but like I don't even know where that comes from. That seems to come from some like Greek mythology or something, and it's sitting in
That's
of a so-called Christian country. I mean, I guess we're secular, but
we got a lot of things rooted in the Greeks. But did you know on the Supreme Court building, there's a big frieze of 18 ancient lawgivers, and Muhammad's up there, and he's got a crayon and a sword. And Drago, Confucius is on there. It's a whole bunch. Oh yeah, Judith.
I have not been up to see the Supreme Court building.
No.
But is that in DC?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So no, but anyways, back to the slutty women. So as I was saying, I see it as a lot of American women, like I said, want to have their fun when they're young. Obviously, you said some people who are, in their 30s and aren't planning on having kids. And but I think the main arc right now, like with the generation of breeders we got, like I have 4 nieces from like college age to the oldest one just got married at like 30 or 31. And I don't know if they were slutting around a whole lot or not, but they certainly didn't have any children. None of them seemed to date very seriously. My one niece, she's a veterinarian. She's like 28. She just, I think, has her first boyfriend. She may be a virgin. I don't know. She's kind of geeky. But so yeah, they're on the pill from like 16 to at least 28 probably, and then generally get married, or they become lesbians, I guess, and then have 1 or 2 kids maybe. But I'm not.
But Mike, how old are you, if I may ask?
I'm 55.
All right, so I work a little bit with some people in their 60s.
Mm-hmm.
In about 50-50 split don't have kids. Like a lot of people I work with in their 60s do not have children.
Wow, that's pretty unusual, because I think me and one of my friends don't have kids, and we're like the only guys in our circle without children.
They might be the only in their circle too, but like if you put them all together, there's a lot.
Well, yeah. If you take all the childless and put them in their own group, then 100% of the
Now,
people are
I mean,
childless.
retired without children is what I mean. Yeah.
Right.
Did anybody watch a movie called Soylent Green?
Yeah, I've seen it. I like the actor. He's pretty good.
Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
He did real good with it.
That was Moses. Let my people go. And he was in Ben-Hur too, right? Charlton Heston.
Well, it's
I did bring it up.
And Planet of the Apes. Get your hands off me, you dirty ape. And they're all shocked he could speak. But yeah, Soylent Green.
Why'd you bring it up, Claire?
Oh, because that was how they got rid of old people.
Right.
They have euthanasia, state-sponsored euthanasia, didn't they?
Right, and that was the Soylent Green. Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
Did you remember that scene? You know, with
Spoiler
all
alert
the.
for anyone who hasn't seen it.
Mhm.
And did you? What was the movie? I can't remember the name. Like Tom Hanks was in it. It was like 3 hours long, and he played like an Irish mobster in one thing, and then he's a guy in the future in another. And it jumped through something Cloud, Atlas Cloud, maybe.
I didn't see it.
Well, they did kind of the same thing on that. They had like these. They were like Japanese. It was, I guess, like in a future Japan type thing. And these women were like these servants and stuff. And they kind of told them they were like trapped somewhere, but if they do real good, they get to go on to the next thing. And so then they would announce like, and they barely fed them. You know, they had these little bowls of rice. They would eat like one bowl a day. And then they announce, oh, you know, so-and-so, you get to go to the next place. And they're all happy. And they actually go and get ground up to be the food for the new ones.
Well, that's recycling for you.
Yep, that's good recycling, I guess. No point wasting that good meat. But, I mean, Soylent Green, is it a post-apocalyptic? That was from the 70s. Is it a post-apocalyptic world, or is there just too many people?
Yeah, I think it's just too many people. It was set in 2020, which has come and gone.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, everything in the 70s, you know, we were supposed to have flying cars by now and all that. Everything, you know, they thought life would be like the Jetsons by now, by 2020. You know, like a Blade Runner, I think the original Blade Runner was.
Well, they didn't predict AI.
Yeah, well, they've been working on AI for a long time. I mean, machine learning and all that stuff. You get the machine to start taking in stimuli and learn from it, not just be if-then statements on the program.
What did you say about if? Then statements? Hypothetical statements?
No, like computer code.
Right.
Basic, you write them as if-then statements. Like, if someone enters this number, then do this. If this happens, then do that. So you're directing the program exactly. And so you got to write tons of lines of code. You got to think of everything that could happen and what you want the computer, how do you want the computer to react to that? If this happens, then do this. If this happens, then do that. Now with AI, you just put in some basic stuff and the computer is supposed to learn from its input as to what it should do.
Well, it's pretty astonishing the quality of you know what it generates in terms of art and essays explaining anything. I'm still really impressed. Do you use AI much, Mike?
I do not. Mm-hmm. My nephew, when he worked for KPMG, he's like, yeah, I use ChatGPT to do my work half the time. There was one lawyer in New York, I guess he used ChatGPT.
He used it a bit too much, I think.
Well, it came up with it cited cases that didn't exist.
Exactly. I think it was he told us that last week.
When they gave it to the judge, he's like, I've been looking for these cases you referenced for like a week. I can't find them. And the guy finally said, well, you know, I used this computer program to kind of write that. Turned out it just made it up.
And you didn't even check?
Yeah, look at that. You're at least supposed to verify the sources.
You would think when it says so-and-so for so-and-so, you could just Google that real quick. And there was one reporter.
But it sounds to me like he was sipping a cocktail in Tahiti or something.
Probably.
On his work dime.
Yeah, it's funny. My brother just got a job up in Jacksonville as a CFO. And originally it was down to him and another guy, and they hired the other guy because he had worked for Fortune 500 companies. And about a month later, they called my brother up and said, he's still available. He's like, yeah, what happened? Apparently the guy came in and he started handing out all these SOPs. And, you know, it's like, all right, we're going to do things this way, blah, blah, blah. And it's a family-owned company that's been around since 1937.
Oh, God.
And
what a nightmare.
They're like, well, maybe you should wait to see how we do it and maybe tweak things a little bit. And then I guess he was in a meeting and he didn't know what FICA was. One of the accounting girls went to the owner like, this guy, he's going to be our CFO. He doesn't know what FICA is. And then they started looking at his SOPs, and I guess they ran it. There's an AI program that can tell you whether or not that's AI generated.
But it's real easy to identify too.
Yeah,
it's not original. It's like a copy of a copy, you know.
Right. So all
I mean, yeah, I mean, some stuff is cool, like the image generation, but a lot of it is just, I feel like it dumbs you down the more you read it.
Yeah, I was just thinking the other day, I wonder what, was it Thoreau or Emerson who said we built the carriage and lost the use of our feet? What they would think about computers and AI.
Right. So, Claire, coming back to, you know, this solution-based thinking that you're proposing, that's my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
How would we go about doing that in the United States? Like, would you just have to become a member of your city council and stuff, or like, what do you propose people do?
It would be adopted after a referendum. So it would be, legitimized
I don't even
legally and peacefully.
this year. Like, have we ever had a referendum here, Mike?
Have we had a referendum in America?
Yeah. Probably like to reform the Constitution, right? For the amendment.
Sure.
It just needs a 2/3 majority, right?
I think so.
If you amend
But
the Constitution,
let's pretend that it does happen, and then we because I need to say how it's going to be done, if it's ever done, and then you're going to ask me, well, how are you going to get people to agree to it? And then I'm going to say, well, you have to make the argument and say
you probably need to seed it right now, like you're saying. If you ever want that to happen, you have to get people talking about it and warmed up to the idea, if it's ever going to happen, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, people are too afraid to discuss it, or hate it so much they tell everybody not to discuss it, as I know from nationalists, and the Muslims are no better, really. They do the same thing. Because I'm basically telling they got their religion wrong.
See if you can start a movement to stop the ERA. That's still moving through the states.
The what? What's the ERA?
Equal Rights Amendment.
What's that about?
It's about women having equal rights. It was started back.
But don't they already have equal rights?
It's not enshrined in the Constitution. There's a lot of different rulings, and there's Title IX with colleges and all this other stuff. But the ERA came out, I'm pretty sure, in the 70s. Literally wanting to amend the Constitution to say women have equal rights with men. I'm not sure how long it is, but I think it's still. Everybody always thought it. I always thought it was.
Well, what about equal responsibilities? I mean, that's a quick way of dealing with it. Like, well, okay, you want equal rights. You're going to, be drafted. Would you like to be drafted for some stupid imperial war? Well, we fight so many of them.
That's what the conservative women said. I think was it Phyllis Shapley. That was her big argument was, I don't want to be drafted in the army. If you want equal rights, you're going to have equal responsibilities. But
but women have been being brainwashed to the idea of being in the army for a while now. I remember me growing up, there were a lot of heroes portrayed as, the first female astronaut, the first female in the Indian military, whatever. Or like aspirants. There were even young girls that were like aspiring to be in the army at 15. And then there was like this little circle that had formed around her throwing a pity party. And I was like, what's up? And she's like, I'm not going to be able to go into the military because I'm a girl. And even then I was like, oh my God, I'm out of here. Like, I don't have time to like sit around talking about this shit. I got to go home. So yeah, it's, that's like a thing, yo, like in India right now. there's a Indian like army gal like promoting feminism, and she's getting an IVF baby out of marriage, like without marrying. So it's like all in one right now. And she's like pretty big out there. I think she lives between India and Singapore, and she has a lot of money. So, it's like, come on, like that. I think, to Claire's point, we got to do that for the other side, which is, I mean, it's kind of happening in a way with the right, but what my question to Claire is like, are you suggesting secular Quranism as somewhere going in through the right and then forming one party through a referendum, or how are you, like, whatever you're willing to share about that?
Claire, you there? Who are you taking down first? You gonna ally with the right to try to crush the liberals, or are you just gonna convince the liberals they got it wrong? Claire may have had to run to the
I think she doesn't know she's on mute, but you're on mute, Claire.
You're on mute. No, because it wouldn't hurt. Even on mute, does your little circle make the sound waves?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Yeah. What's her strategy here? Because I don't think she's getting much traction with this. Although I'm new to it. I read her book, though.
She stepped away. Oh, she has a book? What's her book called, Mike?
Secular Quranism.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If you trust me with your address, I'll send it to you.
No, I'd like to buy a copy that supports her channel,
Oh, there you go. See, I said I was too cheap to do that, so she sent it to me, so I didn't want to make her buy another one. Secular Quranism on Amazon. Great for the Christmas season. It'll fit in the stocking nicely if you got a big stocking. A new moral and legal system for the West and the rest is the subtitle. Oh yeah, I was meaning to ask her. So, do you know Maslow's hierarchy?
I've heard of it. So, sorry, Annapurna, I heard you, but I was in the kitchen.
See, I told you.
Can answer your question.
Like a good woman, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen.
Maybe not quite pregnant. So your question was, how is it going to get done? Do I intend to start a political party? And the answer is no, because if I did start a political party, I would be affirming the operation of political parties, and I'm very aware of what George Washington said in his farewell speech, and he did warn Americans not to have political parties, saying it would be the end of them. And I hope that Americans will make a big fuss about it and say, well, why did we go through Washington's speech and see how many pieces of his advice that we have ignored? And I think it's a shocking number I think I first noticed it in 2021 because I was watching very carefully.
So then someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, that would be somebody that would be like sympathetic to your ideas, or, I'm just saying, just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I mean, somehow it's got to get to, people like him. I mean, there are, web pages mentioning that about why, Washington didn't agree with political parties. And then there was the 1812 war, which I guess divided Americans because they couldn't work out who to support, the British or the French, because most of them were from English stock, but they were also aware that without the French, there would have been no American Revolution. So I think that was why they split. So the
What war was
Federalist
that?
Party, pardon?
What war did you say?
About the split of when the Federalist Party lost its dominance.
No, you said the War of 18 something.
1812, the 1812 War.
That
It was
a war
one of the Napoleonic Wars.
No, that was a war between us and the UK and Britain. The British burned our White House down. We lost that war badly.
Oh. But isn't it one of the Napoleonic Wars? Or
It's
was
worth
I wrong?
examining how it's taught. It's worth.
Yeah, no, I was just, you're maybe thinking like 1804 or something. But the War of 1812 was between the U.S. and Britain. We didn't like them. Their pirateers were taking our ships on the high seas and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, whatever war it was, we didn't know whether to support the English or the French during the Napoleonic Wars. That would make sense.
1803 to 1815, Napoleonic War, it says.
Yeah. But anyway, so you're not going to create a political.
It's inside that, and it says it's a U.S. and its allies against Britain and its allies. So is France allied with Britain or not?
No. I think we attacked Britain at that time because the Napoleonic Wars were going on. It's just like Haiti got its independence in 1804 because Napoleon was a little busy in Europe. So, Napoleon was trying to take over all of Europe. We still didn't like the British after the Revolution because we didn't have a very powerful navy and they were molesting our ships all the time. So we attacked the Brits thinking they were obviously occupied with Napoleon, but they still managed to whoop us. Abigail Adams had to pull the Constitution out of the White House and a bunch of paintings and stuff because they burned the White House down. I think when we rebuilt the new one, we brought one of the burnt cornerstones or something and put it in there, left it burnt. But anyway, what war it was wasn't matter. I just was a little confused there. But Claire, I would suggest you get rid of the Quran part of it. If you want to take ideas from the Quran, that's fine. The Muslims will recognize them without you calling it Quranism. Meld a whole book together with Washington's farewell speech, which I still haven't finished. I was on page 11 or something. I forgot to get back to it. Pull in other American principles that you think mesh with your Quranism.
Well, I'm just going to say the First Amendment is the most important achievement, and the Quran is the only book that even talks about freedom of belief and expression, and therefore it's the best available guide.
But I'd say
unfortunately, the Muslims
just present it as a new constitution, the constitution for modern world. Based on traditional theories, laws, whatever you want to call it. I would leave the religious aspect out of it. Say, here's our way forward.
Then it would be just sort of my idea, and who am I to tell Americans what to do? It has to be somebody like Allah.
Yeah.
Not little old me.
As the Beatles once say, you go around carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, you ain't going to make it with anyone anyhow. I don't think tying it to the Quran is going to help America. Most Americans don't like Islam. Myself.
Yeah, but they don't like. They don't like a lot of things. Americans, I guess, don't want to be told that it was wrong for them to be Christian.
Yeah, I'm sure the Christians aren't going to care for that much.
And so an explanation has to be made about how Christianity is idolatry. And then there'll be total indifference because, it's like everybody's an atheist and they don't care about idolatry because they don't think God even exists to punish these things. And the Jews haven't really been, doing their thing as a chosen people. And Muslims have actually been commanded to obey chapter 18, verse 4, and they haven't done it either. But they, of all people, have the least excuse not to do what they were supposed to do because it was so clearly written. Are you familiar with chapter 18, verse 4, Mike?
From the cave? Not off the top of my head. I know 1890 is where Dulcamain imprisons Gog and Magog behind the ramparts. 1874 is where Al-Qadir kills the boy. 1804, no. What's it say?
Admonish those who claim that God has begotten a son.
Oh, yeah. That's in there several times, the whole son thing. 930, the Jews say Ezra is the son of God. The Christians say Isa is the son of God. I think it's 930. Yeah.
And we know that the Muslims have been doing it wrong, if they have any blasphemy laws, because chapter 17, verse 111 actually says, Allah doesn't require you to defend his honor. No blasphemy laws.
Okay, so you want blasphemy laws?
No, I'm saying that these Muslims have got
Okay,
it wrong. The ones who got blasphemy laws, really
So,
should be.
so we can get close enough to like constitutional people who are faithful to the Constitution. We can appeal to them. You're saying, right?
Mhm.
Pretty much. Got it.
The University of Michigan's translation is, and warn those who say Allah has taken a son. Not admonish them. That's the other problem. The translations of the Quran are all over the place. Anyways, I'll lead you two ladies. I didn't mean to break up the
No, that's okay.
women. I told a Muslim I'd be on their live here today that they started at 1 p.m.
Oh, which one? We might
Islam is
come
the
and have a
way.
look at it. What's it
Yeah,
called?
come on over. Islam is the way. It's Hourglass, who's on Moonji's thing all the
Can
time.
you share the link?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Muji again. Okay. Oh, what do you like about Muji? He's so floppy about everything.
Oh, Muslim
Wait,
landers.
who? Muji, like the famous personality? Or somebody else?
He's a perfect Dawa guy. He's an Iranian. He likes
Like, does he look like he's a mix of black and Chinese? And he's famous on YouTube? No?
no.
Because he's a guy who does meditation and all that.
Oh, yeah, no,
Called
this
Muji.
guy's he's an Iranian living in Sweden who doesn't think you should kill apostates. And so that's his big argument. He
Well, I
doesn't
happen to agree with him
Salafi.
because the Quran actually doesn't say kill apostates.
No, it's just in the Hadith, 84th book of Bukhari.
And my rule is just to ignore any hadith that directly contradicts the Quran.
That's what he says. And then they takfired him the other day, called him a kafir. Then they call him a hadith denier. He says, no, I don't deny all the hadiths, just the ones that are made up that contradict the Quran. Like
Yeah, I mean,
the adulterers. He says he's got a whole big explanation of that.
well, I think these Muslims need to be told a thing or two about how to interpret their book. I mean, they can't say, "Oh, we know better." It's like, well,
I honestly think that Quranism is an angle, and I appreciate that. You got to sell your book and all that, all good. But Claire's much more of a like all the qualms you're bringing up is simply resolved by the Constitution. So
yeah, the Supreme Court.
Constitutional fidelity seems to be like the forefront of this.
Yeah, but the Constitution is siding with individual freedom over government tyranny. And you want to bring the government into every aspect of people's lives.
No, I don't. I take a permissive but literal approach. So nobody accuses me of interpreting, laws away. So I will take a permissive but literal approach, and the way to do it is
Sorry, go ahead. The way to do it. Go ahead.
would be for the Supreme Court to go through the Quran, identifying the verses that are the commandments of Allah, list and number them, and agree on them, and that's how it would be done. People are not just going to, oh, I like that verse, I'm going to do it. I don't like that one, I'm going to completely ignore it. They all have to be, identified and interpreted. So it wouldn't be just my, the selection of my favorite verses. Is what I'm trying to say. In case, people accuse me of that, which I know they will. So it would be, an organic process that would require the input of the Supreme Court of America.
But then, the soft culture part of it isn't to be ignored, or I guess you might go into that in your book.
I don't know what you mean about the soft culture.
Like, like feminism didn't just come out of nowhere, there's like a propaganda type arm of it, and there's a lot of media around it, and it's even pushed by women upon other women. So so that it seems like a rebellious choice, like an obvious rebellious choice. I mean, that's the right now.
A very quick way of dealing with the feminists is to forbid and punish extramarital sex. So I propose to treat unmarried parents as sex offenders. There's a verse, chapter 24, verse 2, that prescribes 100 lashes for anyone convicted of fornication. And I'm going to say I'll raise that standard to anyone caught having children without a marriage certificate. And you can start criminalizing these, unmarried parents. And eventually the penny will drop. So we're going to give these people, they can have sex, but they can't be unmarried parents, or they will be subjected to public corporal punishment, as prescribed by chapter 24, verse 2.
So that still might not cure your not enough kids problem. As
and you're not worried that will cause the left to rebel more?
It's very windy where you are, Annapurna, isn't it? What were you saying?
It is. I'll let the wind pass.
Okay. You asked a question about, Mike asked a question about the birth rate. And I'm saying, once people get the message that married parents will be privileged over non-parents and unmarried parents treated as sex offenders, that they'll start to adjust their behavior. Because this is a very clear, rule. If you have children without a marriage license, you're going to be treated as a sex offender. Well, but I'm saying that because prostitution is not actually forbidden in the Quran, there will be licensed brothels in red light districts, and this will be a business proposition for many people who still want that sort of thing. But if you want to have sex with somebody you're not married to, as long as you don't become parents, you will escape corporal punishment. Okay. You can't say fairer than that.
I think the Muslims are going to argue 24:2 does outlaw slavery. Zina is illegal sexual activity. Again, a broad term, which that's why some people would say that verse abrogates stoning adulterers. But if you read like Sahih translation, Sahih International, it'll say the bracket unmarried adulterer, which doesn't even make sense. You can't be an unmarried adulterer, but that's why it's often translated as fornication. But then if you read Muhammad Assad's The Message of the Quran, translated and explained by Muhammad Assad, he translates it as just adultery. So even Islam doesn't know what the hell it's doing.
No, I just don't see what the problem is.
But
If
anyways,
you have a bastard, you're guilty of the crime. So, and I think part of secular Quranism is that every married father will get a free DNA test every time his wife has a kid. How about that? So if it's not his, then he can do something about it.
okay. What are you going to do about it if you're not going to stone her?
Well, you can divorce her.
You can divorce her.
Okay.
The Quran doesn't mention stoning at all. So,
Right.
and all that stoning business comes from the Talmud anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Comes from Judaism.
Agreed. All right. Well, can you guys see my comments? I've never done this comment in the back chat. Always just a private chat. Anyways, I put that link up there for you. I don't know if you can stream live while being on the other stream. I think you can, right?
I'll try. Yes. Thanks for all the complicated legal comments that you I haven't read them properly, and I guess
that was just about the ERA. But yeah, so the ERA is moving its way through the state. So it was ratified by the House and then the Senate back in '71. But to have an amendment to the Constitution, you have to get 2/3 of the state to also ratify it. So it has to go to each legislature. And, I thought it was dead, but
is Trump okay about that? The ERA?
Do anything
I
about
think
it.
he's powerless about it.
Yeah, if it gets amended by 2/3 of the states, it gets amended. I don't think you have veto
The
power.
same as like the catch and release with immigrants. He's powerless to change that. I think it's already been ratified.
Yeah, the president is as powerful as a lot of people seem to think. I mean, he is powerful, and they do a lot more things just on executive orders these days. But he's not supposed to even be able to go to war. But Vietnam, they gave him a lot of war power, so he needed to repeal all that crap, make Congress stand up and declare war. That'll get rid of a lot of these little military interventions.
Well, somebody needs to sort of adopt a holistic approach to everything. So a little bit here, a little bit there, you won't fix a problem. You kind of need to do a spring clean of all that is wrong, and find somebody prepared to, say things to make people sit up.
All right, sounds like time for a revolution.
Well, maybe Trump would be more prepared to do it than any other president, because he of all people would be interested in his legacy, wouldn't he? You wouldn't want to be there for 4 years and then everything go back to what it was when he goes. Or does he want a third term?
I would imagine he does, but it's not allowed anymore. Not since FDR.
Oh, that's so crazy. Just because, if you want to re-elect a president a third time, then you're very fortunate to have somebody you like so much.
Right. Well, it was Washington's example that everyone followed, that he stepped down after 2 terms. Now, having read some of his farewell letter and some of the content behind it, I guess he wasn't all that loved, that he might not even got a third term. But when Washington did that,
just being falsely modest.
Right. Yeah, he's known
maybe
for
just wanted to retire anyway.
Right. Yeah, but that set a precedent that every president ever followed until FDR, who got elected 4 times. Of course, 2 of them.
Oh, so that precedent was broken.
Right. And so then after that, we did an amendment to the Constitution for term limit.
Well, I don't know. Everything needs to be changed so much. So I don't see why, people can do a list like, well, all these things we're not happy if it's, making us do other things wrong and stuff.
Yeah, but you might get a whole revolution over just the Second Amendment. You're going to have the people who want to take the guns away, and you're going to want people who want to keep their guns.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, The whole point of keeping your guns is
Yeah, but somebody got that on the agenda. I think that's her point, that to get this stuff on the agenda, on speaking points at people's mouths.
well, I think there needs to be a national conversation, and what has thwarted me is people just conspiring with each other not to discuss it. Not that they have anything better to discuss. I don't. As Annapurna says, I mean, there are only two options: secular Quranism or the status quo. Carry on voting, which surely cannot be the only options people are prepared to discuss. Well, they're not even prepared to discuss my option. And I think that the problem is people just don't want to be the first person to talk about it. So if I'm not there, I guess nobody will talk about it.
Yeah,
Because it-
but I don't think you're getting far with a total system overhaul. Yeah, we're incremental in our overhauls here in America. We're not like the French. We don't have these.
Right. So my question to that was like, would you consider in your argument like that punishing unmarried parents would like embolden the left to protest, or like it could empower the feminism argument?
Sorry, I didn't hear that because of the wind.
Oh God. Sorry. I just like what if the left starts like taking your points, talking points, and protesting you? That's the question. Like, oh, she wants to put us in jail. She wants
Right.
to punish us. Like, what if Winston Bruno tomorrow is like, this person wants to punish us and put us in jail and take our rights away?
Well, I mean, I'd be prepared to say, well, I mean, you either support the eugenic production of the next generation or you don't. And obviously it's been dysgenic. That's why, everything's going wrong. The locals aren't fit to do the work, and that's why you have immigration, and that causes so many problems. It's because of the low birth rate and bad parenting, which is a kind of biblical concern. I mean, the Bible does go on about, bad parenting.
See, though, to me, the incremental change should just simply be to stop rewarding bastard children. You don't have to punish them necessarily. Just stop giving people money for having them, and the problem will solve itself. It's just like Americans who are too lazy to work. Well, that's because the alternative is to sit on welfare and live a decent little life in America. I mean, people on welfare probably still have cable television these days. They definitely have internet. Everybody's, the internet divide. Now we give free internet to people. You got to stop giving stuff away for free. The problem with America is our socialist leanings that the left has driven us to since the Great Society.
Well, if America is a matriarchy, then it will just be breeding parasites. That's the nature of, matriarchy.
Well, I don't think America is a matriarchy. The last two women to run for president lost. Trump beat two women.
Right, but females are way overfavored than males. If you want to abuse the system, like females can do it to the max, I think.
Right.
Yeah, they can do it more easily.
Flawed, not because it's matriarchal leaning. It's just the men abandon the children, the women don't. So then you got to feed the children through the woman.
Yeah, but so you need to punish the woman. You need to punish, it's supply side, right? You punish the supplier of a drug or, something undesirable, because there will always be a demand for, sex and drugs and rock and roll, and you discourage the supply and you deal with the problem because the demand will never go away. And as for what was Mike saying earlier about welfare? Well, I mean, I think we have to admit that slavery is an institution like marriage and prostitution, and neither the Quran nor the Bible have ever proposed abolishing slavery. So you need slavery because it was the ancient form of the welfare state. So if you end up completely homeless, somebody will take you in if you're prepared to work, in return for, accommodation and food. And that was the only form of workfare that ever worked. But once you start giving people money to stay at home, then they'll choose to stay at home and not go to work. And if you hire people to manage them, you're actually increasing the cost of the welfare state by saying you have to come here at a certain time and report to work. And then if they don't come, you have to chase them, and then it becomes unsupportable. So why not people admit that they were wrong to abolish slavery? But then it goes back to the Civil War, the American Civil War, which I think was not so much about slavery, but, the Americans being mean to each other, the different states being mean to each other, the North and South, not taking into account their different needs. What one was agrarian and agricultural, and the other was industrialized. So there need not have been a one-size-fits-all law for all of America. And if Americans then had thought of secular Quranism with Alabama characteristics or Connecticutan characteristics, then all these different states would be able to interpret the Quran in their own way, with or without slavery. But it never occurred to them to do that.
Right. Well, you're swatting at a lot of hornets' nests there, Claire. You're going to tell the feminists.
But just to show that I have thought about it, because people will say, oh, Americans are going to be dressed like Arabs, and our women will be in bin bags, just like in the Gulf states. It's like, no, you can all interpret the Quran in your own way, up to, you can. So you'll be able to, show your individuality as, I don't know, East Coast, West Coast, fly over Hawaii, whatever.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go make a drink and then jump on this other stream here if it's still up.
Okay.
If you guys want to come over, Hourglass, who I think is going by Submission to God on this, is the owner. There's only 39 subscribers. So anyways, Islam is the Way is the name of the channel. And
Okay.
Hourglass is the guy who's always on Perfect Dawa, and he's always arguing with Munji that you have to stone the adulterers, you have to stone the apostates or kill the apostates. He's a more Sunni driven guy.
Right. Well, I think I will go. And argue with him.
And he's an American, I think.
So this submission to God thing, that's the one to go to that you just posted in the chat.
Yeah, I've seen it. He's live.
Okay. I might go. Yeah, I might go there and join you. Make it more fun.
Well,
Thank you for having me, Claire. I appreciate getting the chance to know you.
Thank you for coming. It's been a very constructive conversation. Thank you for your words of support.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're ever down in Tampa Bay, look me up. That's my real name. I don't know if they have phone books anymore, but
They got Facebook.
I'm not on Facebook, but maybe I should do that. I'll get on Facebook one of these days.
Or Twitter.
I was banned from Twitter after my 2 comments.
Oh, right.
Islam Wins got me banned. Although I think since Musk bought it, I think I can get back on there.
Yes.
It was like
yes.
August of 2021.
Yes. Great. All right then.
We'll see you over there.
Yes.
Porna, you can come over too. And I'm going to go get a drink and go to the bathroom, and you might beat me there, Claire.
Okay. All right then. Thank you, Mike.
See you.
Bye. I feel I should deal with Annapurna's comment about riling the left. she asks, would punishing unmarried parents embolden the left to protest? Yes, but we kind of want to rile them. Could it end up empowering feminism argument? The thing is, we have to be brave. We have to take the argument to them and not always be on the defensive. And I think, yeah, this change of stance could work in our favor. But I know Annapurna favors a soft culture push rather than hard enforcement. There will be no culture until the law actually changes, and the law won't change unless you ask for it to be changed and make the arguments. You have to make the arguments, and that's all we're required to do. We just have to kind of move our lips and make sure that the words come out right, and that's it. That's all we have to do. We should start practicing. Thank you all for coming.